The crowd surges in, and every face screams sorrow mixed with dark, morbid curiosity. Every gaze locks onto the central plaza, like the whole world just leaned in for the next big public show. The scribes are already at it, their quills scratching like they're racing against time, to capture every single second of the event about to explode. Thick, heavy chains slide out like a threat, proof of total control. The official record is getting penned right now, like a story with the ending already locked in. From the prisoner's POV, everything becomes a dizzy blur of faces, like the world is already preparing his final bow. Chains snap taut and a chilling, final grip clamps down. A lone figure gets yanked up the steps, his soul looking utterly shattered. They announced those chains were no ordinary cuffs, they were built to lock his powers down for good. They slap a demon power label on him, but all he can see are the faces of everyone he let down. They yank him in front of the faceless mob, the very same people he's being accused of ruining. He bursts into desperate screams, begging for answers, like what did he do wrong? From a rooftop nearby, this sharply dressed man starts talking, and the whole crowd turns against him in an instant. He cradles a strange glowing orb, and a smug grin spreads across his face. His words landed like a punch, demanding to know whether our boy ever really grasped the people's pain. Or maybe the accuser presses on, there was a whole other reason driving his actions. Then with a brutal surge of raw power, the special chains explode apart in an instant. That explosive blast rockets him backward across the stage like a cannon shot. He flings himself off the platform, disappearing into thin air as the guillotine looms in deadly silence. The accuser's words still sting as he slams down onto the wooden planks. He tilts his gaze upward, not fueled by rage, but swallowed by crushing self-doubt, terrified it's all happening because he did nothing. From the stage, a familiar figure whips around, his face icy, distant, like he's already shut the door on everyone. And our boy stammers his brother's name in shock, Arthur, his own blood. A long-forgotten memory snaps into place, him kneeling there again, right in front of that same man. He remembers begging for his life, then bam, it clicks, his name is Mordred. He can still feel the disappointment burning in his brother's eyes. Arthur's words from that day hit him again and again, you don't get people's hearts. And right now his brother just turns his back, cold as steel, offering him zero comfort, zero mercy. As they haul him back toward the guillotine, Mordred finally snaps into it, like the truth is landing all at once. He remembers getting shoved around and hearing them say that getting hurt was just part of the deal. Was just part of the game, wearing that cruel smile like it owned his soul. And now he finally gets it, how brutally agonizing that pain really is. But it was a lesson nobody ever bothered to hand him. He just needs to obey the ones in power, and then everything will finally fall into place. A memory of betrayal being tossed aside like I didn't matter, with not even a second thought. Right as his life flashes in front of him, one sharp thought snaps into place. Head frozen in place, he just glares into the void like it owes him answers. If only he could get one last shot to redo it all from the start. But when the executioner speaks, he seals his fate, and this is where his story finally ends. They asked him if he had any last words to leave behind. But Mordred's out of options now, he can only swallow his fate in silence. The rope snaps and the blade comes roaring down like it's hunting its target. The condemned man's fate hit him like a blade, swift, merciless, and final. The crowd sucks in a breath as the official story hits the page, unfolding right before their eyes. His last thought wasn't regret at all, it was the brutal promise of how much it would sting. Then he jerks awake with a blood-curdling scream, his whole body shaking uncontrollably. He's not sitting on an execution stage, he's on the floor of a gorgeous room, the guillotine is nowhere in sight, and somehow his life has been wiped and reset. He can only sputter out one word, pure confusion, and nothing more. He's back in his childhood room, staring around like he's been dropped back into his younger skin. He grips his chest and the truth hits him like a punch, he's alive. But the revolution still burns fresh in their minds, every flash of chaos, every ugly raid, every stolen thing from their home. He stares out the window at the castle that burned to the ground in his past, and the memory hits like fire all over again. Overcome by panic, he drops to the floor and gasps for air, struggling to breathe. He remembers losing everything, like it all happened inside a nightmare, so vivid it still burns in his head. Right then, a bunch of maids barged in, beaming bright smiles as they greeted him. But forget Mordred, they call him Arthur. When they shout that breakfast's ready, his eyes flare up with pure, uncontrollable joy. He flashes back to the prison food from his dream, watery soup that tasted like nothing, and stale bread that crumbled the moment he touched it. The hall goes dead silent, and it snaps him right back into the moment. Clearing his throat, he tries to shove the execution away as nothing but some twisted nightmare. He stares up at his brother's portrait, absolutely convinced that someone like Arthur could never end up getting executed. A surge of pure joy hits him as he pictures the brilliant life he's destined to live. His bizarre behavior, chattering at a portrait like it could answer, leaves the maids utterly speechless. They trade tense, worried looks, completely baffled by the blast he just unleashed. Because in the end, he's Arthur, a name that demands respect and keeps him safe. He suddenly remembers how, back in his youth, someone drilled into him, never even lay eyes on the commoners. The maids shouted at him again, yanking him back out of his memories like a sudden slap. The whole staff looks like it's spiraling into panic over whatever just happened. A frantic chef blurts out that the delivery got delayed, so breakfast is doomed because there's not a crumb of bread left. But then Arthur suddenly snaps, brilliant idea bursting out, leaving everyone else stunned. He grins and says, "No bread, then skip it, just eat cake." He's practically glowing with pride over that simple, elegant solution. This is the exact life he was born to live, where everything finally bends to his will. And he swears this is his brand new, incredible reality, at last. But behind his back, the maids huddle close and start whispering like they're plotting something. They're bringing up that wild, out-of-nowhere outburst he pulled earlier. That tone-deaf little suggestion of his just eat cake, sent everything spiraling. Whispers chase him everywhere, a cold reminder that royalty isn't just special, it's twisted, and it sure doesn't feel good. Overwhelmed, he snaps them off in a hurry, then declares he's heading back to his room. He whips around and bolts through the garden, sprinting away while the staff shout after him. Yet the maids can only stare as he disappears, one of them finally convinced she wasn't imagining his weird behavior. He barrels into his chambers, slams the doors shut, and cuts off the world behind him. This was meant to be a blessed, perfect life, the dream he'd finally get to live for real. He crumples to the floor in panic, clawing at the air as the question burns in his head, why is everything falling apart? The key is buried in the wild memories of his past life as Mordred. He can't wrap his head around why that hellish existence still clings to him like a curse, staring at his own hands, pure terror claws at him. He shoots his hand out like he can grab this fragile new reality before it slips away. But his eyes are blown wide with a terror he can't even begin to put into words. He clamps his eyes shut hard, fighting to drown out those brutal, haunting visions. But the darkness drags him even deeper, ripping him straight into the memories of his past life. He spots the uprising again, commoners hurl themselves at the gates, blazing with fire and armed to the teeth with steel. A roaring tidal wave of rage crashed in and swallowed every single thing he'd ever called his world. And he sees himself as Mordred again, standing there perfectly calm, while chaos tears everything apart around him. He can still hear someone shouting his name, warning bells that hit way too late. He remembers it being hauled away while he screamed in pure defiance, like he'd rather fight than break. And that's when it all slams back, how it felt to be left behind by the one person he trusted with everything, drowning in crushing despair. That old name hits him like a punch, Mordred. He can't stop thinking about one thing, why in the world this revolution was even happening in the first place. He even pitched the idea of handing money to the commoners, like it was a simple, instant fix in his head. But every time he reached out, all he ever got back was laughter that cut and pain that lingered. He couldn't stop himself, he demanded his brother explain what any of it even meant. He still remembers the gut punch panic when he realized their fortune vanished overnight. And Arthur's only answer was a sharp, burning question, what horrors had Mordred done to deserve all this? Nobody had answers, just a flood of excuses after everyone else had already bolted. He remembers begging his brother, utterly shattered. But Arthur's final verdict hit like thunder, he'd never change a single thing. He's yanked straight back into the nightmare of his imprisonment, where agony never let up and pain kept crushing him. He can still feel himself gasping for air, pinned on that cold stone floor. A guard would shove in and taunt him, sneering, "So you finally get it now, the pain these people are forced to endure." They de-dump him there and cruelly shout his brother's name, Arthur, like it was his. He clings to the accuser's words, laughing at the power he can't even touch. The weight of these memories crashes down on him, and panic hijacks his whole mind. After the revolution, they tossed him into a cell, and every single day the people he once ruled beat him down again and again. And he still can't forget that mysterious girl who slipped into his cell, healing him bite by bite. She dropped to her knees before him, beamed softly and asked, eyes pleading, if he was hurting. And he knows, cold and certain, that none of this is a dream, "This is real," etched into his memory. He clenches his teeth as the horrifying truth finally crashes in. Right then, a gentle voice cut through the air and called out his name, Arthur. He's yanked back to that memory of the girl staring down and asking why he was lying on the floor. Now she's right in front of him, just a maid with those hollow eyes, quietly asking if it hurts. The same question she'd thrown at him in that freezing, pitch-black cell. He jerks his gaze upward in full-on panic, realizing it's the same woman he saw back in the prison. The moment it clicks, his whole world flips. She's been one of his maids this entire time. He instinctively stumbles back from her shadowy figure, like it just reached for him. She just stares down, her face locked tight with mystery, as she flat-out rejects his fear. Arthur blasts out back, and fear crashes over them as the past and present slam together like a tidal wave. He stumbles backward, choking on his own breath. In a rush, he stumbles and topples the tray of tea everywhere. The steaming liquid blasts across the maid's uniform, splattering it everywhere. Arthur jabs a finger at her on the spot, screaming that it's all her fault. He scrambles to justify his outburst, insisting it was only self-defense. But the maid just raises her hand and reads from the scalding tea like it's the loudest warning ever. Arthur freezes like his mind finally catches up and everything he just did hits him all at once. He snaps his gaze away, desperate to wriggle out of any blame for her injury. His mind spirals, screaming, "Why her?" as he realizes she's the one carving pain into him. For the first time ever, he catches a real, painful flicker on her face, like it's finally breaking through. Still hurt herself, the maid throws that pain aside and reaches for him, asking if he's okay. Arthur just freezes, staring in total shock, utterly clueless. A sudden click hits her expression, and realization flashes across her face. She fights to make him understand. Her worry isn't only about him. He snaps his hand to his head, and the woman from his past comes crashing back into focus. The exact same person who'd come to find him in that freezing, pitch-black prison cell. That horrifying connection slams into him, and suddenly panic takes over completely. He's drowning in the crushing, agonizing memories of his past life. He can't wrap his head around it, why those ghosts still cling to him, even though he's supposed to be Arthur now. He grabs his chest, stunned by phantom pain from a life he's suddenly lost. She shoots him a worried look and asks straight up if he's the one hurting. Arthur's jaw drops at her question, like the world just flipped upside down. He waves it off, insisting loud and clear that he's totally fine. Then his attention snaps. He demands to see her injured hand, right now. He slowly takes it, and at last a quiet apology slips out of his mouth. He stares at the burn and knows it has to hurt like hell. Then he boldly declares, this is my special ability. With a burst of light, he vows, "I'll heal her right now." Turns out the power he finally understands isn't just dangerous, it's healing magic, and it can set people back together. Once the wound's gone, he beams and gives her a proud head pat, satisfied he nailed it. He leans in and asks if the pain is finally gone, grinning like he just won the whole fight. But she's totally rattled, begging him to never unleash that power on her. She snaps that his magic is way too priceless to be squandered on some lowly maid. The thought of Prince Arthur using his gift for her sake is straight up unbearable. Arthur whirled around and muttered under his breath, insisting it was him who caught her off guard. But she calls his name again, and this time her face softens like something in her heart just eased. He glances back, grips his chest tight, and admits it, just seeing her twists his heart into pain. Her cheeks blaze red as his sudden, totally out-of-nowhere confession knocks the breath right out of her. Thinking she misheard everything, she bolts from the room in a full-on panic, cheeks burning and heart racing. The door slammed shut and Arthur was left alone, staring after that ridiculously loud maid, mind racing with questions. He stares at his own hand, stunned. This is the first time he's ever managed to heal a commoner. His thoughts snap back to his childhood, his tutor looming over him, face inches away. He told them straight up that his healing power was an unbelievably rare treasure. Someone told him to think hard about how to use it, and he swallowed that advice with a smug grin. The tutor's question didn't sound like an option, it landed like a command, no room to argue. They drilled it into him, use your magic only when they tell you, like it's just a tool for the people on top. Back in the present, he yanks a book off the shelf, and you can still feel that lesson weighing on him. After all, that's exactly what they trained him to do. He decides to drag the whole incident to his tutor, later, along with the maid's details. But just as he heads to slide the book back, something strange jolts his attention. It's this beat-up, torn-up book sprawled on the shelf like it's seen war, and it doesn't match a single one of the others. He leans in and realizes this isn't a spellbook at all, it's somebody's personal notebook. As he flips open page 1, he realizes it's a diary stamped from the year 21. But that first entry screams a grim prophecy, then a revolution erupts and Arthur Pendragon ends up executed. That terrifying prediction hit a nerve because it echoed his own brutal memories. He erupts in a scream and hurls the diary across the room, panic swallowing him whole. He just can't wrap his head around a future this twisted and sick. A heavy silence crashes through the library as he glares at the abandoned book, like it's daring him to do something. He tries to stride off and shove what he saw out of his mind. But an unstoppable curiosity claws at him, and he turns back, heart hammering like crazy. He frantically tears through the pages, his hands shaking like they can't hold on. The pages blaze with the revolution's victory, right up to the moment Prince Arthur is finally seized. And get this, it even spells out the year he died, cutting his life off at just 20 years old. With every page he flips, the sweat on his brow chills like fear itself. He reads about the guillotine's torture, and a horrified scream tears out of his throat. He freezes on the spot, hit by the confirmation of his worst fears. Right then, an hourglass from a nearby shelf flips over and smacks down squarely on his head. That brutal hit jolts his brain back online like a switch finally got flipped. As the hourglass crashes to the floor, he finally breaks, realizing this was never a dream. He grabs his head and that horrifying truth slams into him. Time has been reversed for real. Then it hits him, horror creeping in, because this isn't just some story anymore. But destiny was already lining up the blow that would hit him next. A brutal future where he's marched to the guillotine and his head gets taken. He can't shake the thought that there has to be some way to dodge this horrifying outcome. He yanks the diary back up, desperation surging as a wild plan lights up in his head. He needs to get it figured out, no matter what it costs him. Meanwhile, the maids are still trading rumors nonstop about everything that just happened. Whispers rip through the castle halls like sparks, darting from one corner to the next. The maid Arthur healed is still shaking with wonder, and she keeps retelling his story to anyone who will stop and listen. And at last, her story slams straight into the ears of Goyoku, the prince's personal tutor. Goyoku leans in with a smug grin, totally hooked by the rumors swirling around Prince Arthur. He barrels straight into the maid's face, accusing her of using her body to seduce the young prince. She writhes against his grip, fighting for every breath as she screams, "That's not true," at the disgusting accusation. But the tutor's authority hits like an iron law, and the other maids are left frozen in silent terror. They can only huddle in whispers, helpless, unable to step in and change a thing. Goyoku slams the truth into their heads, defying the nobles is unforgivable. The maid still shudders at how they pushed her to use the prince, and the idea sickened her. Right then, Arthur himself barges in and demands, loud and furious, to know exactly what they're saying about him. His sudden arrival detonates a fresh wave of panic across the staff watching him. Goyoku's face flips from shock to a sly, "I just got it" realization. The maid blurts out his name, utterly stunned by his sudden, shocking appearance. Goyoku darts in and tries to patch everything up on the spot, insisting it's just a tiny little problem. But Arthur snaps that he's only giving the maid a stern scolding for how she acted earlier. He leans in and tells her to calm down, insisting he gets the whole situation perfectly. Spotting his one shot to slip out, Goyoku scrambles to find an excuse and back away from the conversation. But Arthur slams to a stop in front of him, yells his name with brand new authority, and cuts him off cold. Then he steps up and tells everyone, "I'm a changed man," like he's completely reborn. Goyoku leans in, eyes sharp, and asks, "Can we talk for a minute, just us in private?" Arthur snaps around, staring him down, and demands to know what kind of tutor would even have business with someone like him. With a wicked grin, Goyoku shoots Prince Arthur a sly look and swears every single move he makes is for the prince's sake. Arthur beams and tells everyone he's itching to get his hands on the financial ledgers. Goyoku's face contorts into a greedy grin as he snatches the task like it's exactly what he wanted. The tutor snaps that a prince needs to roll up his sleeves and work, right after his fiancée chews him out. He looks like he's cooking up trouble, then a bead of sweat slips down his face. Goyoku plays it like he cares about Arthur's schooling, but the prince shuts him down with one calm line, "Don't worry." Then he offers the tutor a reward for all his hard work, and Goyoku is left completely stunned. Meanwhile, the maid leans back and remembers it clearly. The hand Arthur healed wasn't just burned, it was rough with heavy calluses. Arthur suddenly lunges forward and offers to heal the tutor's stiff shoulders, pushing him back into a chair as he takes control. The tutor can only grimace in pain, replaying how selfish that prince really is. Arthur's face hardens as he points out that nobles almost never get hurt. Goyoku stands there utterly baffled by the prince's words, while the maid quietly studies everything from afar, lost in thought. Then bam, Arthur snaps back to a memory of the countess, the one Goyoku brought to him back when a woman had gone to them screaming about a brutal, unbearable pain in her hands. He leans toward his tutor and demands to know what happened to her, and you can see the worry settling deep in his eyes. He can still hear the warning in his head, heal her fast, because she's from a merchant family. A woman spent her days counting money, and it totally baffled his younger self. Goyoku breaks into cold sweat, totally misreading Arthur's quiet stare for something way darker. But Arthur yanks his hand, pointing out that it looks brutally painful. He spots the same calluses in the exact same spots as the countess's. The tutor suddenly shuts up, one bead of sweat slides down his cheek like it's running for its life. Goyoku lets out a shaky little laugh and tells the prince, straight to his face, that he's being downright cruel. Then he leans in close and drops the bombshell. He's from a merchant family too. But Arthur's face stays ice cold, his mind racing with cold, calculated intent. His thoughts explode into one brutal word: liar. From the doorway, the maid sneers at the whole pathetic spectacle. Arthur leans in and tells the tutor, "Every coin I count each day, that money's mine." The accusation lingers like a thunderclap, and the maids suddenly snap to it. He's talking about embezzlement. They instantly realize they've stumbled onto a conversation so dangerous it could get them killed. Arthur flashes a sly smile and offers to heal the tutor's dishonorable wound. He then snarls for Goyoku to hand over the financial ledgers, right now. Goyoku jerks his eyes up from the floor and blurts out, "Why is the prince pulling a face like that?" Arthur towers over him, declaring this the start of something new, because the prince is finally done being ignorant. He flashes a confident, almost cruel grin, soaked in the joy of his brand new power. The tutor can only stammer in pure terror when Prince Arthur suddenly shoots up in size. Arthur calmly tells everyone he's genuinely thrilled to see this change. Crushed, Goyoku darts off into the shadows, and not a single word follows him. The maid sprinted straight to Arthur's side, showering him with praise for that insanely brilliant performance. They can't wrap their heads around it. How could the prince snap back at his tutor just because of some lowly maid? But then boom, sudden praise hits Arthur, and his cheeks blaze while he's totally flustered. He tries to shoo them away, swearing up and down it's nothing special. He plows through the financial records and the truth hits hard. Goyoku's been siphoning off the money right from the top. With a fresh surge of purpose, he fires up the maids, "Keep it up," then bolts out the door. The staff can only stare as he slips into sudden shyness, and they're completely bewitched by it. The maid he healed can't help but see him as genuinely kind now, like for real. Later that night, the full moon blasted down its cold light. Arthur stumbles into the royal garden and lets out a crushing, heart-heavy sigh. He finally clears his head, but that grim future lurking in the diary still drags like a weight on his shoulders. He frantically tears through the pages, hunting for even the tiniest clue, anything that could stop his execution. Then wham, a sudden blast of wind tears the pages out of his hands and scatters them everywhere. He can only stare in terror as those precious pages slam down into a nearby fountain. He crumples in defeat and his future pages turn into a sad, soaked, completely useless mess. A sharp cry of pure rage tears through the silent garden, like the night can't take it anymore. But as he scoops up the wrecked pages, something often wrong catches his eye. That page in the book showing Goyoku's embezzlement has totally disappeared without a trace. And right there a brand new line flashes up, hinting the future has been nudged just a little out of place. He jolts to the truth, his choices are already clawing their way into his fate, rewriting it in real time. But he can't stop thinking, how could such a tiny shift possibly slam the brakes on a revolution that's already brewing? Or will fate still drag him to the guillotine for his final end? He erupts in frustration, convinced that even this tiny change is totally pointless. From the pages, a creepy button-eyed figure stares at him in total silence. That creepy button-eyed thing bursts out of the pages in a sudden leap. Arthur stumbles backward, utterly blindsided by the bizarre creature. It looks like she's the exact same maid he just healed. A fresh message pops up, revealing that the maid's friend is ready to fight his execution. He flips through the diary again and again, convinced this new info was totally absent last time. The book lays out his good deeds now, and it even slaps a point on each action. He finally gets it, every choice he makes is violently rewriting the future in real time. A fresh plan sparks in his mind, he'll unleash his healing magic to win everyone over. And he fights tooth and nail to slip out before they can end him. With a single, confident step, he orders the stunned young woman to become his personal maid. His sudden declaration slams into the young maid and leaves her totally speechless. News of his decision rockets through the entire estate in no time. The maid's thrown into full-blown panic, convinced this new job is nothing short of a death sentence. All the other servants just huddle and whisper that her career is already done for. She mourns the abrupt end of her short, simple life as a maid. Before she can breathe, a stern woman calls her in and confirms every last fear like it's already written in ink. She snaps at her, voice sharp as blades, demanding answers. What in the world has come over her? Then we find out it's Marion, the head maid, who snaps at her to get a grip right now. The young maid can only blurt out her name, desperate tears spilling as she begs for help. But when she finally breaks down what's going on, Marion's jaw drops because Prince Arthur himself made the request. Marion tells the young maid that the prince's appointment is proof of deep trust, and the girl is practically glowing with joy. But the moment she admits things began strong, her expression twists into something sour. She's still left reeling from how he suddenly craved, stacking up good deeds like it was his new mission. She replays Arthur's explanation in her mind, and it leaves her utterly dumbfounded. He figured the only way to win over the common crowd was to bring in someone who was easy to talk to. With a bright, hopeful smile, she eagerly took on the role of his personal maid. Arthur snapped into action on the spot, healing the injured servants one after another. The maid beams at him and cheers that he nailed the good deed. But Arthur snaps to the truth in an instant. This isn't what he ever wanted. He snaps around, yells that he's going back to his room, and storms off, leaving her standing there, stunned. She remembers the whole place roaring with celebration, yet Arthur's face is drowned in sorrow. That thought detonates in her mind, and panic spirals out of control. She can feel the crushing weight of this new responsibility, and it's way more than she can handle. She can't stop replaying that heartbreaking look she stamped onto his face. And that's when she lands on a brutal decision she can't take back. She leans in and tells Marion, "I don't think I can pull this off." She's got zero confidence about being his personal maid, not even a little. Marion hears the confession and fixes him with a stern, stone-faced stare that gives nothing away. Before he jabbed a sharp poke into her forehead, just to snap her out of her trance. The young maid whips her head up in shock and blurts out the head maid's name. Then he fires off a second poke, just to make sure the message lands loud and clear. Marion tells everyone she's doing this for Arthur, and not just for him, but for the maids too. She tells the girl that no matter what reason the prince had for picking her, they just can't wrap their heads around it. But the young maid refuses to back down, insisting she still has to know. She has to figure out why Prince Arthur picked her out of everyone, so she can read his mind, figure out what he wants, and push him all the way to it. Her fiery plea freezes the head maid in stunned silence for a beat. Marion breaks into a smile, suddenly seeing the prince has been shouldering a crushing weight all along. And maybe that's exactly why he went for a girl as real and straightforward as they come. Then she drops the bombshell. Prince Arthur's own mother was a commoner too, and she's basically hinting that the young maid looks an awful lot like her. The maid is left utterly rattled by the head maid's twisted logic. Marion tells Arthur that what he needs is a proper pampering, like a mother would do. The poor young maid's brain just totally fries from the sheer overload of confusion. Marion squirms and awkwardly admits that certain nobles have some seriously bizarre tastes. She shoves a tiny bag into the maid's hands, ordering her to give it everything she's got with whatever's inside. With a sharp nod, the head maid storms out, and the girl is left alone, staring down a mysterious task no one else will explain. She cracks open the bag and gasps at a delicate, eye-catching piece of clothing inside. Marion, trapped in her own wild scheme, just flushes hard, stammers that it's nothing, and refuses to spill a single clue. But the maid swallows the advice like it's gospel, and dashes off to pamper the prince exactly as she was told. She spots Arthur in the garden, and he just tilts his head and asks, "What's wrong?" He's still scrambling to crack why the diary won't update, while the maid quietly strips her courage from behind his back. She suddenly pounces on him and declares she's about to pamper him like he's still a kid. Arthur can only freeze in total confusion as she blasts a rattle right in his face. He's utterly stunned as she whirls around him, shaking that toy like her life depends on it. Pounded by the non-stop noise, he finally snaps at her to shut it. His razor-sharp tone drops the maid like a rock, leaving her utterly crushed. He lets out a heavy sigh and admits he just wants to crash and rest for a while. But she immediately offers up her lap as a pillow, and Arthur can't believe what he's seeing. She swears a lap pillow feels insanely relaxing, but he's clearly not buying it. He snaps that he can't see a thing, right as she points out how beautiful the sky looks above them. He tosses the lap pillow aside and shoots her a look, asking her to make him some tea instead. As he turns to leave, he throws out a casual request for a ridiculous amount of milk. Then the maid suddenly snaps. She has a wild, bizarre, super loud idea to pull off that request. Her overwhelming intensity smashes the air out of them both, dropping them flat on the grass, utterly drained. She tries to make sense of that wild outburst, but Arthur's completely baffled, like he has no idea what's happening. He finally storms into his room and declares his retreat, leaving her standing there, completely baffled and alone. She blurts his name, but the moment it leaves her lips, he vanishes from view. She watches him leave and it hits her. He's still drowning in the same dark depression as before. With grim determination blazing in her eyes, she declares it's time to unleash her final resort. And then she sneaks to his door and peeks inside, now dressed in that head-maid's special outfit. But the moment she steps in, she finds Arthur crashed out cold in his bed, already fast asleep. She can't help but wonder, will this daring outfit really lift his mood, or is it all just wishful thinking? Realizing she messed up, she shoots off a soft apology for barging in. But he's clearly falling apart, and she blurts out his name, panicked and worried. A sharp gasp tears from his mouth as he finally starts to crawl out of the nightmare. He cracks his eyes open, just in time to spot the maid kneeling at his bedside. She softly asks, "Were you having a bad dream?" Arthur snaps his gaze away and mutters a low apology, like he can barely stand to face it. She admits she was totally lost after seeing him that upset earlier. So she grabs his hand and tells him just how thrilled Marion and all the other maids were because of his help. He leans in and demands her name. She smiles and says she's Marion, the very head maid he helped. He confesses that in his past life, he never even bothered to learn her name. He treated her like a nobody, never once seeing her as a real person. He lays it out plain, all those little moments of ignorance stacked up, until they crushed everyone into that brutal future. A future he still can't quite wrap his head around. She blurts out his name, yanking him back from the crushing depths of his dark thoughts. She admits plain and blunt that as a commoner she can't even begin to understand what a prince goes through. But then she looks him in the eye and promises, "If you're hurting, I'll always be right here for you." She tells him, "If you've got nobody else to talk to, come talk to me. I'll always be here." Her sweet, heartfelt offer hits him like a lightning bolt. He's stunned, speechless. He glances off to the side, lowering his voice as if he can't help but ask, does she really get what she's saying? She smiles and admits it. His burden is so heavy, so impossible to grasp. But if he can't crack it on his own, she steps in and offers to work it through with him, side by side. Her steady, unwavering loyalty hits him like a wave. He's left completely speechless. And for the first time since he came back, a real, unguarded laugh bursts out of his mouth. He taunts her for being a flaky maid, and she grins right back, happy to admit she's a total rookie. He sinks back into bed, and for the first time in forever, calm finally crashes over him like a warm wave. She tells him, "Just take it from here. Can you handle learning from now on?" With fresh fire in his chest, he vows this time he'll do it the right way. Her soft smile hits him like a spark, and suddenly he has everything he needs to push forward. She breaks into tears of relief, absolutely bursting with joy now that she finally managed to make him smile. He leans in and teases her, grinning as he points out that she's finally smiling too. She can't stop thinking maybe playing mom is a fantasy, but then a new idea sparks in her head. What if she's the older sister instead? The very next day, Arthur called out to her and confirmed it. Her name was Marion. She freezes dead in her tracks, totally shell-shocked that he actually remembers her name. He tells her this time he's done half trying, and he's going to learn every single one of them the right way. He even cracks a joke, saying she's the cornerstone that keeps his plan for racking up good deeds standing. With a single, simple gesture, he sends the other maids into pure, breathless delight. They rush in on him instantly, buzzing with excitement as they beg him to remember not just their faces, but their names too. But that sudden flood of attention smashes straight into him, and he can't take it. He bolts for the garden, completely drowned by the shock of how wildly popular he's become. He crouches behind a bush, face burning, overwhelmed by every last eye on him. He swears he wasn't scared for a second while he backs away in a frantic hurry. Right then, a stunning woman steps in with a bouquet of roses, and she showers him with praise for everything he's done. She flashes a soft smile and quietly realizes he never really had a clue about the staff he was working with. Marion finally confesses the brutal truth. She never truly knew him either. Arthur just says, from now on, we'll learn everything about each other. His blunt declaration slams into Marion so hard she can't even find words. He shoots her a tiny, almost shy smile that almost feels like a secret. He whips around, finally admitting he's left it too long, and asks her name. With this new understanding locked in, he straight up asks her, face to face, to be his personal maid. With a dazzling smile, she snatches the roll, and boom, we finally learn her name is Kay. And just like that, a brand new chapter ignited in her life, serving as Prince Arthur's personal maid. And then boom, this new reality crashes into her all at once, crushing her like a wave. Arthur bursts with excitement, telling you that every good deed he does gets logged, right down in his special diary. And Kate locks in a promise with them. No matter what this wild new mission throws at them, they're facing it side by side. He can't help smiling as he realizes it feels amazing to hear his name spoken with that kind of warmth. Even those creepy diary creatures are giving this new road their stamp of approval. Later, Kay bursts in and finds him sprawled on the floor, boxed in by a wild storm of paper airplanes. With a grin, he basically confesses he only wanted a reason to shout her name one more time. A paper airplane tumbles down and lands right at her feet, like a tiny clue proving this weird, brand new connection is real. Then a new thought hits him, only this time a serious-looking woman brings up his fiancée. Kay is absolutely bursting with joy at Arthur's sudden kindness. Arthur shoots a confident grin and says, this is only natural. She's shocked and genuinely impressed that he's actually munching onions now, a food he used to absolutely hate. With a bright grin, he devours his meal and can't wait. He's itching to dash out and start helping people. The two of them dig into a delicious breakfast together, basking in the warm glow of the sunlit room. Kay practically bursts with excitement, saying his urge to help is the exact definition of noblesse oblige. That line hits Arthur like a gut punch. He chokes on his food, eyes wide, completely stunned. She keeps praising his brilliant thinking, totally blind to the distress that hits him out of nowhere. Hearing that word instantly drags him back to someone he's desperate to erase from his memory. Right then, a paper airplane shot past Kay's head, leaving her frozen in pure, baffled confusion. It clocks Arthur dead on in the face, and he stumbles back hard, shocked out of his wits. He snatches the folded paper and demands, right then, what it's supposed to be. Kay snaps back, calling out the disrespect, and points out the proof is literally right there in writing. When they finally unfold it, there it is, a brutal, vicious list packed with savage insults. Arthur whips his head around in sheer panic, asking who could pull off something like that, only for a stern figure to turn and stride away. Her voice still haunts his mind, pounding like a lecture about noblesse oblige. He yells through the rage, begging that person to get out of his head. And right at last, we finally catch a glimpse of her true face, Morgan Le Fay, the noble lady who commands the room. Kay grins at her like nothing's wrong, cheer blazing on her face, totally oblivious to the pure terror crawling across Arthur's. Morgan leans in close, presses the moment, and practically dares him into tea time. He blurts out Kay's name with desperate urgency, fighting to break free as she tries to slip from his grasp. He snatches his maid and bolts, Morgan stuck there, watching them disappear. She just watches him bolt, her eyes filled with a deep, thoughtful calm. Kay figures they'd be perfect together, and Morgan shuts that idea down instantly. That encounter yanks Arthur straight back to the moment they first met. He still remembers her laughing at his infamous, let them eat cake line. She slid a stack of papers into his hands, and the young prince froze like a startled deer. She boldly claimed those voices belonged to the common people. And horror hit him when he realized these weren't random notes at all. They were the letters of complaints and suffering, stacked like proof. Morgan just stares him down, totally unfazed as panic rips through him. She told him straight up, if this kept going, a revolution was bound to erupt. And she barked at him to fix the problem right now, no delays. Young Prince Arthur couldn't do a thing but tremble with raw terror. He blew up in a full-on tantrum, screaming that everything was way too much to handle. Morgan just sat there, glaring at his own outburst like it disgusted him. She let out a crushing sigh, utterly fed up with the way he was acting. Her mere presence used to send fear ripping through him back then. She ripped into him, an ignorant fool, a prince who understood nothing at all. In the present, Kay snaps to it. He realizes he's been talking about Lady Morgan the whole time. Kay shoots, so you're really that scared of me, and Arthur can only explode into a scream of pure terror. And Morgan coldly drops the bombshell. She's not just someone special, she's his actual fiancée. The moment the news hits, Arthur rockets upward, panicking like crazy. Kay reaches for the tea, but Morgan snaps, telling her to stop right now. From behind the pillar, Arthur snaps to the truth. Morgan already knows Kay's name. The noble lady turns her back, wearing that same icy, unbreakable look, cold as ever. She still remembers the kingdom's collapse, where commoners were so starving they fight over even a single bean. And she can't forget his infamous idea, forget it all, let's just eat cake. She reminds him of that reckless prince who pressed a blade to his own throat just to prove a point. But she shoots it down fast, she didn't come here for him at all. She tells him straight up that while he can linger here, she's got mission-critical things to finish. With one last chilling warning that the revolution is about to erupt, she snaps around and strides off into the dark. Kay can only stand there, frozen in shock as she walks away, the whole encounter still rattling her mind. Arthur instantly erupts into a tantrum, snapping that he's trying his hardest even after her brutal words. Kay jolts at his sudden outburst, staring at the crumpled paper clenched in his hand. She leans in and studies that strange writing, her mind racing. What on earth could it mean? Meanwhile, Morgan barges into the office, and there's that familiar figure, waiting like they've been expecting her. It's none other than Goyoku, the prince's disgraced former tutor. He starts griping at once, furious that the prince is gone completely spoiled on his watch. But Morgan coldly slashes him down on the spot, sneering at his flashy outfit and at the private fortune he's quietly built. She snaps that she'll fire him on the spot and burn through the rot to purify the royal family. Goyoku finally admits it. He's the one who hunted down every single complaint the people had and gathered them all. A memory hits her. There she is, surrounded by starving kids, watching their pain up close like it's happening to her. He scoffs at her hard work, brushing her off and telling the young lady not to get too ahead of herself. She slumps in total defeat, realizing he can wipe out every ounce of her hard work with one strike. He taunts her, sneering that the royal family's power can shut down the people's voices with zero effort. So he presses her if she truly loathes the prince, why doesn't she just cut the engagement and walk away? But she snaps back, screaming that she's not like the rest, that she carries the real spirit of noblesse oblige. He snatches her up and sneers, snarling that Prince Arthur does absolutely nothing for his people. Back then it was a brutal contrast to what's happening now. Kay gleefully yanks Arthur along, yelling that same line at the top of her lungs. Goyoku jolts to his feet, stares at the floor in disbelief, and blurts out Arthur's name. Kay stormed in, threw herself in front of Arthur, and demanded to know why they were barging in. Arthur hunkers down with shaky determination, tells himself not to dream too big, and then forces himself to move, because he can't just sit there anymore. Morgan's eyes sharpen with fresh resolve. She's convinced she's the only one who can fix this. Goyoku instantly jabs a finger at Morgan and blasts her with the accusation that she's trying to get him fired. He's dead sure she's the one behind the rumors, trying to spark a full-on revolution. Morgan can only stare in horror as she turns every move he makes into straight-up treason. The disgraced tutor snivels and plays the victim, whining that her lies are crushing him from every side. Morgan slumps as she looks down, completely crushed while her name is called out. From the doorway, Arthur stares at everything with a chilling, sharp-eyed calm, like he's already mapping every move. Morgan just smiles and shrugs like, of course it's only natural. She blurts out that he isn't the one getting pushed out, she's the one being driven away. Then she drops a shockingly sincere apology for the way she threatened him earlier. But she just scoffs at the whole revolution idea, calling it nothing but a joke. Arthur steps up, staring at her like, "Are you serious? I'm really supposed to buy this?" He hurls her own words right back at her, smashing her hope and warning her that the revolution is still barreling toward them. His words landed perfectly, and she gives him a quiet nod like she can't deny it. Goyoku just gapes in total confusion, begging to know what the heck is happening. Kay barrels in front of the prince, shouting at the tutor to shut up. Arthur snaps into panic as he realizes every single complaint from the crowd is spilling onto the floor like it's getting shredded by something unseen. Then it clicks, these aren't mere complaints at all. They're his ticket to rack up those good deed points he's been desperate for. Then it hits him, Morgan wasn't just messing around, he'd been trying to hand him the truth the whole time. A frustrated cry rips out of him the second the truth finally crashes in. Kay tries to soothe him, convinced he's only terrified by Morgan's non-stop talk of revolution. But Arthur treats those letters like hard proof, like a loaded weapon he can finally swing back with. He finally realizes these papers aren't random at all. They're a message meant for him from his fiancée. Kay's stomach drops as she reads about deadly disease, crippling starvation, and a desperate cry for education. With a bright smile, she finally clocks it. Those weren't insults meant for Arthur at all. But she snaps into action and refuses. There's no way in hell she'll let him witness those horrifying things. She scrambles to hide the letters, but she doesn't notice the iron-determined look hardening on his face. Then it hits him those letters aren't just words anymore. They're the screams of his suffering people, finally speaking for them. And then it hits him, Morgan's been battling this war alone the whole time. That paper airplane wasn't an insult at all. It was a last-ditch, desperate SOS, begging him to finally look his way. He scrambles through the chaos, snatching up every scattered page, his final shot at surviving. Morgan jerks his gaze down, stunned, and demands, "So you really trust her now, huh?" With a cocky grin, he steels himself and charges straight into a future that once sentenced him to execution. With fresh purpose blazing in his chest, he shouts, "Morgan." He insists this is the truth, no exceptions, then he declares he'll save every single one of them. Kei keeps watch while Arthur jabs a finger, not at Goyoku but straight at his fiancée. He locks in his choice, ready to shatter the fate that's been trapping them both. Arthur decides he can't just hear about it, he's going to face the suffering with his own eyes. And shockingly, Morgan actually agrees to take him. She tells him that Avalon, her own territory, is a safe haven, a refuge for anyone who needs help. Kay and Arthur throw a celebration for their brand new alliance, thanking her like she just changed everything for them. The whole staff is getting swept up in the prince's brand new purpose. And for the first time ever, Arthur looks genuinely thrilled, like he can't wait to finally be a prince. But the memory of his past self's ignorance still stalks him, and that same voice in his head keeps screaming, "You're a fool." Morgan clocked his hesitation right away, and her expression softened just a little. She shoots him a straight-up warning, this time he's not getting away. With Kay right beside him, Arthur dives into the brutal, soul-draining grind of answering every one of his people's desperate pleas. Morgan can only shield her face, totally stunned by the instant flip in his heart. She watches him from afar, trying to decode this new Prince Arthur like he's hiding something she can't see yet. As she turns away, she can't stop replaying the prince's weird behavior in her mind. She remembers Kay's sweet, naive belief that she'd truly come here to help her. And Arthur's sudden confidence hit like a gut feeling, like he somehow already saw the future coming. Before they know it, they burst into the lively, bustling castle town of Avalon. Arthur can't help but notice how alive everything feels, right beside letters of pure suffering. But Morgan can't shake this gut feeling. The prince feels different, like something's changed. She swings around and concern flashes in her eyes as she blurts out, "Are you okay?" Her thoughts snap back to just a few hours ago like it just happened. Kay was smiling and chatting away like the long carriage ride couldn't possibly get any better. Arthur sat in silence, flipping through pages like he was bracing for impact, trying to get ready for whatever came next. But then their journey got cut short when a man leveled a crossbow at them, his face contorted with pure desperation. He snapped at Arthur, blasting an accusation that he was just some prince who heals only the rich. A crossbow bolt flashed in Arthur's eye the moment his companions screamed that an alarm was going off. Arthur just stood up cool, steady, and locked in like he'd already decided. A burst of blinding light suddenly rips from his hand. The other commoners shot in at once, yanked the attacker down, and tore into him for his reckless stunt. Arthur can only stand there, frozen, as they yank the man away, watching it all unfold in silence, trapped in their fear. Morgan lets out a brutal sigh and snaps that he's already caused a scene. He glances at his notes and in a cool, steady voice, tells everyone they'll be there by evening. Morgan can't stop himself. He's staring at how calm Morgan stayed while everything went down in the attack. He tells them his healing kicks in the instant he gets hit, so he feels the blow slam in, but the pain never gets a chance. It still hit him like a gut punch, like some sixth sense was screaming that an attack was seconds away. Morgan drops the bombshell that she's headed to Avalon, and Arthur scrambles to play it off like it's nothing, just pure reflexes. But she stops him cold and orders him to go see the town with his own eyes, then learn what life is really like for the common folk. She storms off into the streets, and he's left trembling at the edge of her shadow. Arthur lunges for Kay in pure panic, his mind racing as he wonders if Morgan is finally starting to see him differently. Just imagining those two actually getting along makes a hopeful blush creep across Kay's face. And with Morgan stuck with the job as their reluctant guide, they gear up to hit the castle town on a full-on tour. A young girl strides up and offers to be his big sister, promising to shield him from every scary person out there. They're nestled in the town's quiet magic. Children are laughing and playing right nearby. The girl hypes him up with a super popular toy, a simple cup and ball game. She lays out how the game works, then tilts her head and dares him to try it. Arthur can't wait to reach them, so with a grin on his face, he barrels into that challenge head first. But his first try goes wrong instantly. The ball slams into his face with a brutal smack. He admits it's way harder than he ever imagined, and the girl is stunned by it. The force slams him down and Kay barrels in, rushing to his side. But as he pushes himself up, it hits him. He's never cared about these little things a day in his life. Now he sees them as real people, not a faceless mob, each one out there living their own life. He suddenly realizes he's nothing like his bright, outgoing maid. He's miles apart. He whips back to the kids, and a whole new truth hits him like a lightning bolt. For the very first time, he doesn't just look at them, he sees people, each one living their own life. Then boom, a sweet, irresistible aroma hits him, yanking him out of his own spiraling thoughts. The sweet scent slingshots them straight to a nearby stall, where cookies are still fresh from the oven. He grabs one, and a tiny blush bursts across his face as he takes that simple treat for the first bite. Kay grins as she chats with the vendor, then he swears up and down that she and the other person are siblings. Then she bursts with excitement and volunteers to buy cookies for the whole crowd. Meanwhile, Morgan stays posted by the gate and her face stays ice cold, like nothing can shake her. Arthur and Kay finally tear back from their inspection, arms overflowing with treats. Kay feels the tension hanging in the air, then turns to Morgan and demands to know what's really weighing on her. Morgan whips around to Arthur and demands, "Are you really here to save everyone?" She points around and declares, "This is Avalon, my territory. Is where the cries of the broken echo and gather together." She demands Arthur prove he's really ready by showing her his resolve right there. He devours the letters one by one, and every single line screams the people's rage and crushing sorrow. Morgan leans in and demands to know if he's got the strength to take it all in. Arthur announces, "I'll use my healing power to fix everything," and you can feel the stakes shift instantly. With a sudden wave of confidence crashing over him, he declares, "Of course I can do it." But Kay can't help thinking there's a smarter, better way to use his precious magic than just wasting it on casual moments. She insists that using his royal authority as a prince would hit way harder. A title card snaps onto the screen, screaming his full name and station, Arthur Pendragon. Morgan listens to their exchange, eyes locked in a deep, thoughtful stare. But Arthur suddenly lights up. This is his shot to march straight into the kingdom's problems and finally take them head-on. He kicks things off by pointing straight at the brutal gap between the commoners and the nobility. Then he slams the food shortages on the table, zeroing in on the brutal lack of wheat. And then he drops the bombshell, healing magic is a monopoly, and the powerful are hoarding it all to themselves. He flat out says this is the exact reason he showed up in Avalon. To finally crush every single one of these problems. Morgan looks genuinely blown away, and straight up admits he didn't just wing it, he actually thought everything through. Kate can't believe how much Prince Arthur has grown. But he just bursts into a laugh because the whole time he's been cheating the system, all thanks to his good deeds notebook. Morgan lets out a long breath and finally decides to bet on him, at least for now. Arthur doesn't even pretend to worry, he's just glowing, thrilled that someone finally takes him seriously. And just like that, Morgan jumps in and agrees to lead them straight into their first real, official case. But Arthur's already got the perfect place picked out for today's good deed. He grins and points at a nearby orphanage, and it drives Morgan absolutely nuts. He's convinced today is the perfect shot to sweep his fiancée off her feet and rack up some serious points. He slams into a dramatic pose with a bucket on his head and declares, loud and clear, that he's done letting fate control him. But before he can finish his grand speech, a crumpled paper ball ricochets off his head and cuts him off instantly. Arthur can only freeze in total confusion, because that bucket is still locked tight on his head. Suddenly, a second wave of kids comes sprinting in, and Kay gets slammed with it before he can even react. They barreled past her like a little, unstoppable army on a mission. In the blink of an eye, the bucket-headed prince gets utterly overwhelmed by a full-on swarm. The scene snaps back just a few minutes earlier, the moment they first rolled up to the orphanage. Kay fretted over what morning had in store, but Arthur waved it off and told her she had nothing to fear. The moment they arrived, an old man, the orphanage's head, burst into joyful tears, overwhelmed like he'd been waiting for them forever. One of the kids blurts out that Morgan had already warned them to brace for a visit. From behind that wall, Morgan peers out, hungry for distance, and makes it crystal clear he wants zero part in what's about to happen. The old man is utterly crushed, tears pour down his face the moment he sees Prince Arthur for real. Morgan can only stand there, jaws dropped, as he realizes he's somehow ended up in a place like this. The old man leans in and declares Prince Arthur is more than welcome here, anytime, no questions. And just like that, the saga of the reborn prince kicks off. He's done living someone else's script, and he's about to rewrite his whole fate. He's stunned that one little visit could light up their entire world with pure joy. With a grateful heart pounding in his chest, he swears this is the place where his fate finally turns. He leans in and tells the kids, "Today, you can do whatever you want, just don't hold back." With the bucket sealed tight on his head, he holds his breath and waits for their reply. But their reply hits like a hurricane. They start pelting him with everything they can grab. Kay shrieks his name in pure terror as the prince gets completely buried by the kids. From far away, the orphanage looks peaceful, but inside, the chaos is already roaring. The first punch crashes right on his head, and it's clear the apology is already flying in too. The old man brushes it off, saying the kids are just a little too rowdy, but Morgan can't stop wondering if his healing really wipes out every last trace of pain. But a sinister presence creeps into the air, swallowing their innocent game under a dark shadow. Kate yells his name, panic blazing in her voice, while Arthur keeps apologizing on the floor. One kid steps up, voice soft but sharp, and scolds the others for hurting their brand new friend. Arthur tells them he's fine, but they still need to be more careful. Then the kids rush in and blaze out their apologies in a heartbeat. The old man's voice breaks as tears spill down his face, insisting Prince Arthur is basically a living saint. From the sidelines, Morgan sneers that he's just feeding them what they want to hear, while Kay looks utterly wiped out. He pushes them to hit the books hard and grow into good people, and those words hit Morgan like a lightning bolt. She remembers blurting those exact words herself, and then she's left stunned. Why is he suddenly acting so noble? But Morgan's gaze snaps upward to a boy perched high on the rafters. The old man barks at the boy, demanding he drop down right now. One of the kids blurts out that a blessed prince could never, ever grasp what they're going through. And for some people, no matter how hard they push, their best still drags them straight to an early grave. Those grim words hit Arthur like a punch to the gut as he strides toward the quiet child. He fires back, asking if it was them who talked about dying, even after they fought with everything they had. The kid jerks back in panic and blurts, "I didn't say that," as if denying it hard enough could make it disappear. But the kid perched on the beam screams that it was him, and Arthur stays cool as he calmly asks, "Does it hurt?" Then he offers his magic on the spot, promising he'll heal whatever pain is crushing that boy. And the moment they say death, a terrifying memory snaps back, like the guillotine's blade sliding into place. The other kids huddle up and whisper, scared to hope, like, what if healing is impossible for them? Morgan can only slump against the wall, her face screaming pure exhaustion. The boy introduces himself as Beatty, then leans in and asks if Arthur is really serious about helping for real. He tells everyone a monster came for him, and then poison surged through his body like a death sentence. Another kid scoffs that this poor healing magic is nothing but a fairy tale, then they just sit there waiting to die. They shrug and call it fate, then snap back that they'd rather stuff their faces than chase false hope. Later, Arthur spots the boy up in the rafters studying, and the kid demands to know, has Kay really taken control of the new funds? Arthur scans his notes and snaps, why is this kid pushing himself so hard? The boy panics and stammers, desperately trying to deny he's studying for any reason at all. He snaps at Arthur to stay away, screaming in pure panic that if Arthur touches him, he might actually get healed. Arthur cranes his neck, totally thrown off by the boy's sudden, explosive outburst. Then a soft smile blooms across his face, and it's like he finally gets it. He closes the distance to the child, and fresh determination burns in his eyes. Kay and the others burst into shock, yelling his name as if it just appeared out of nowhere. Even Morgan holds his breath, eyes locked on him, desperate to see what he does next. Arthur leans in and tells the boy, I know what it's like to claw at your destiny with nothing but desperation. He leans in close, urging the kid to keep pushing and giving it his all, because he wants them to fight like he does. The prince's words hit him like lightning, and the boy is completely speechless. The old man crumples to his knees, sobbing uncontrollably as he shouts that it's a miracle. And the other kids finally see it. The real power of a miracle hits them all at once. Kay and Arthur silently stare from afar as the boy finally manages to breathe, like the chaos can't reach him anymore. The other kids stare in disbelief, blurting out whether Arthur really used his healing magic on Beatty. But Arthur swears he never used his power, he just dropped a few words he'd studied from his notebook. Betty finally cracks and admits that he gets exactly how brutally painful that kind of suffering can be. And that's why he couldn't just walk away from someone fighting tooth and nail to keep living. Arthur drops his gaze and admits it, he's been nothing but talk this whole time. Morgan tells everyone the truth, he only heals when other nobles demand it. And this is the very first time he's ever chosen to do it, of his own free will. Her words hit Arthur like a thunderclap, and he looks up, lost in thought. He nods along with her, and suddenly everything clicks, fresh understanding flashes across his face. Morgan can't stop wondering, did it feel exactly like this when he healed Kay? A rare, soft smile blooms across her face. Arthur can't help it, he blurted, "What do you mean by that?" She just shrugs and says she'll have to learn from here on out, and he nods like it's settled. Then he flashes a grin and tells the kids, "Keep my healing under wraps, especially from her." That night Arthur prowls the grounds, restless and broken, unable to find a single moment of peace. He flips open his diary and spots a fresh entry, one from the orphanage, daring to oppose his execution. Betty's pain still haunts his mind like it happened a second ago. From the dark shadows, Morgan can't help but wonder, did he really just claw his destiny into a new shape? He knows a prince can't be caught sleeping on the side of the road. All he can think about is her name as she stands alone under the moonlight. Her face stays stone cold, like she's trapped in deep, silent thoughts you can't crack. Arthur snaps back, pretending it's totally normal, like he's slept outdoors 1,000 times. But he can't hide that he's flustered. She looks down at him, and it gives him away instantly. She snaps into a serious tone and finally speaks. Morgan tells him she's done beating around the bush. She wants to ask him something straight to his face, the kind she can't bring herself to ask Kay. And he lines in, asking if she really believes he can rewrite his own fate for good. He immediately freaks out, blurting that he has no clue how any of this works. But the moment he admits, "I really don't know," his face softens like the fight just slipped out of him. With a soft smile, she tells him he's already changed, because she's been watching him for all this time. The very next morning, Arthur snaps awake with a blood-curdling scream that screams nothing but terror. His diary just got a chilling new line, because now Mordred's faction is keeping eyes on him. He erupts in a full-blown tantrum, shrieking that no matter what happened, nothing has actually changed. Days crawl by under a non-stop, gloomy downpour. Kay hammers on his chamber door, pleading with him from the outside, begging him to finally come out. But for 3 days, the prince has sealed himself off from the whole world. He stays buried under his covers, refusing to look reality in the face. Crushed by despair, he swears he'll never step outside again. If this keeps going, he knows it. There's a guillotine with his name on it, and it's coming. The diary's words keep pounding in his head, screaming that danger is coming, yet he has no clue what it even means. That creepy, button-eyed monster he drew in his diary hangs in the air like a living threat. But Arthur lunges into the dark and snatches it from out of nowhere, desperation blazing across his face. He drops to the floor in a jolt, screaming that death by execution is absolutely unavoidable. On the other side of the door, Kay shouts his name, packed with real worry. She finally steps in, ready to hear every word, no matter what's tearing at his heart. But she freezes on the spot, unsure she's pushing past the line she's allowed to cross. Arthur snapped his gaze up from his diary, stunned by her sudden burst into the room. A tiny creature springs up, practically begging him to step outside and shake off the thoughts in his head. But the door slams shut right in her face, and she can't help wondering why he's fighting this idea so hard. Because Arthur knows this isn't some game. If he bumps into Mordred, his execution won't wait, it'll come faster. He suddenly realizes this timeline is brutal. His execution is only 5 years from now. A fresh plan sparks in his mind. He's going to claw his way out of Mordred's fate somehow. Kay stands in the doorway, and the worry on her face hits like a punch. He blurts out her name and orders her to summon Mordred straight to his chambers. A calm, confident chuckle ripples through the room like it owns the silence. He clocks the blind spot, and now he's charging straight at Mordred, no detours, no delays. After everything he pushed through, he finally lands on it. This is the quickest way to crush his problem. So Kay storms ahead, shouting for the elusive Mordred like she's hunting a ghost. Right when they're about to walk out, a gentle knock hits the door like a warning. Right there stands the one who killed him in his past life. Mordred Pendragon, third prince of the realm, breezed up with a killer smile, greeting his older brother like he had nothing to hide. Arthur just stands there stunned because his usually reclusive self feels totally out of place next to this kid's fearless confidence. Mordred throws out a brutal joke, "You look like a prisoner," and it sends a cold spike straight through Arthur's spine. Because he knows that in just 5 years, this kid will rise and steer the whole revolution. Mordred's smile vanished into stone-cold seriousness, a silent warning that Arthur better not blink ever. But his face snaps back into an innocent little smile, and Arthur swears that expression is a sign of the revolutionary future coming for everyone. Kay, the ever-helpful maid, suddenly lights up with a wild idea. She flashes a warm, polite smile and offers to bring the young prince a fresh cup of tea. Mordred cuts the formalities short, waving everyone off as they insist they shouldn't just hang around in the hall. Then he snaps at Kay to get out, because he wants his brother all to himself. Kay nods softly, agrees without a sound, and slips away, leaving the two brothers alone. But Mordred slams on the brakes, grabbing her attention and demanding to know why Arthur suddenly starts calling that maid by name. Arthur tells everyone he's done messing around. He's forging this into a new habit starting right now. Mordred's expression suddenly brightens, and he blurts out that he thinks it's an amazing idea. He finally turns to his brother and praises him for snapping into focus on the class inequality problem. He even brings up how Arthur backs the orphanage, and he hypes his big brother as downright amazing for pushing all that effort. Arthur goes wide-eyed, totally caught off guard, thinking that if he plays his cards right with a brother this adorable, he might dodge the execution altogether. Mordred keeps going, basically confessing that he'd totally assumed the wrong thing all along. His face suddenly twists into darkness as he spills the truth. He's been sure all along that Arthur only used the nobility for his own selfish ends. He lays it out cold. Arthur's chokehold on healing is a privilege that can't be stopped, and those orphans will never land real work, not in the way they dream. Arthur roars back, furious at his brother's cynical jab. Mordred flat out says the orphans are giving it everything they've got, but it still isn't enough. Then he shoots Arthur a chilling look and demands, right to his face, if he can really feel at ease with that. With a terrifying grin, he vows to flip the whole world upside down for his brother. The sinister offer crushes Arthur. He's sweating, trembling, and his fear locks him in place. Later, Kay shouts for Arthur. Again, he's barricaded himself in there. He erupts out of his bed, shouting like he's drowning, totally lost and scrambling for what to do next. From the other side of the door, she shoots him a warning. If he doesn't listen, he'll end up sick, and she offers to help him out. She snaps back that she's not content to just obey. She wants to crack the real reason behind his change. But Arthur can only stand there, frozen, staring at his own power, because deep down, he knows that same strength is the chain that keeps him tied to the nobility. He's convinced that telling Kay about his fears would get him absolutely nowhere. So she snaps into action and drags him out of his self-made cage with her own hands, no hesitation. She pushes the idea hard. He doesn't need comfort. He needs to bake in the sun, even with the sky looking like doom. He fights back against her methods, but she's dead set on dragging him outside, no matter what it takes. She even shows up with a special parasol, an import made to shoo the rain right off her. But Arthur's only mission is protecting his precious diary. He grips it so tightly it's like he'll never let go. Panic crashes over him. He screams for her not to touch him as she closes in. The two of them huddle under that umbrella, and a tense, worried silence snaps tight between them. Kay finally straight up asks about the notebook, and when she sees that stone-serious face he always wears while he reads it, you can feel the weight of it. But he coldly snaps that it's none of her business, stuffing the terrifying secrets in his words and hiding them from her. She shoots him a worried look, begging, "So I'm just some scary, useless maid to you." But her eyes snap with a sudden, razor-sharp determination. Arthur goes totally wide-eyed, blurting out, "What is that look supposed to mean?" He's basically saying, if I'm giving it everything I've got, then you should be praising me, no excuses. He's already out here, so tell me, what more does she want from him? With a sudden blur, Kay snatches the precious diary straight out of his hands. He shrieks in pure panic, clawing the air as he demands she hand it back, right now. She yanks it back from herself, snaps that he's being disrespectful, and can't stop wondering, why is he raging like this? The whole struggle finally snaps. He slams the book into her right face as he shouts her name. She grips the diary tight, swearing it's all that'll stop him from shutting himself away again. She snaps that she's furious. He's trying to handle everything alone again. He insists this mess is his to carry, but she snaps back and refuses to let him dodge the truth. Arthur drops to his knees and demands she spell out exactly what she means. Tears spill down her face as she demands, "What are you trying to tell me?" He turns his gaze aside and admits, with a sting of shame, that he's uneducated. And he's got no real answers to give you. He knows he's the last person she can count on. Through trembling tears, she fights to claw out the perfect words. She grabs his attention and begs him to stop staring only at what terrifies him. Arthur just freezes, staring at her with his brain utterly scrambled by that desperate plea. She spins away, admitting it feels totally weird that she even bothered to try. After all, he's a prince, always charging into battles she couldn't even begin to imagine. She shrugs off her own words, dismissing them as nothing but an exaggeration. But in her eyes, he's a noble warrior charging straight into his pain, and backing him up is the only thing she can do. She can't stand the thought of him suffering or feeling even a single second of sadness. Arthur can only freeze, staring at her in pure shock as her sincerity hits him full force. He finally tells Kay the brutal truth: her wish can't happen, not ever. With a shaky, sad little laugh, she admits she knows it can't be done. But still, she locks eyes with him and confesses she'll keep chasing that wish. She grips the diary like it's a lifeline, then fires off the question: was he truly shocked by her outburst? She admits his outburst blindsided her, and that shock ignited her rage into something unbearable. But Arthur still can't make sense of it. He blurts out, "Why would you rage or break down over my problems?" He blurts out that he's totally lost, then begs her to teach him. Tears streak down her face, but she grins anyway, because he's finally asking for help. She leans in and tells him straight up, she, Morgan, and every maid here don't just serve, she wants to be his strength. The array of hope finally rips through the suffocating, gloomy sky. In the end, it was him who threw himself in and saved her. Her simple, honest answer detonates straight through him. He's left totally speechless. And with a tiny smirk, it finally hits him. He truly gets it. He drops a soft apology, knowing his push drove her away, and he just can't forget it. He'd already seen how kind she was back then. And then, right as the sun finally shatters the clouds, Arthur suddenly gets hit with a blazing new idea. He asks Kay to whip up some tea and invites her to sit with him for the very first time. He vows to consult with her from now on, no matter how brutal life gets. And the worst part, he straight up admits he hates seeing her upset, so Kay's completely thrown off and can barely think. Eyes blazing with a fresh kind of fire, she pledges she'll become the maid he can finally trust with his life. He grins and takes her offer right away, and just like that, the two of them finally click and see eye to eye. Kay even has fresh sweets lined up, and they're ready to brave whatever comes next together. She snatches the sweets on a plate from the head maid, then freezes, trying to figure out what he's thinking of her right now. But Arthur yanks her in close, demanding they devour them right here, right now. He admits the fresh air has worked up a monster hunger, and they both grin and take a bite like it's the best thing ever. A rare, breath-stealing calm, just the prince and his loyal maid, sharing a quiet moment like the world finally paused for them. But just as their smiles explode, an insanely spicy punch hits, so hot tears blur their eyes. Arthur drops to the ground in pure agony, yelling at the top of his lungs, "What kind of cursed tart is this?" Kay claims it's a remake of the beloved Saintess's favorite flavor, and that's when Arthur starts side-eyeing the woman's taste like, really. She can't help but wonder if his healing power is tied to that spice, even though she knows it sounds totally impossible. Both are crumpled on the floor, utterly defeated, while another maid just stares in total disbelief. And Arthur suddenly realizes, panic flooding in, that no healing on earth can erase that horrifying taste. But through the pain, Arthur suddenly hits a brilliant epiphany. He gasps Kay's name out loud, like the words are burning. He swears he's cracked the one answer to fix everything, while Kay is left totally baffled. She asks if this finally means he's ready to step outside again. He blurts out, "Forget going outside, we're actually headed to a foreign country." Kay snaps at him that he was supposed to check in with her first. But Arthur is already sprinting away, blurting out his plan to meet the Saintess. Kay can only shout his name, utterly stunned by the reckless decision he just made. Later, she finally spills the real reason they got yanked into this sudden journey. Neighboring powers are watching their kingdom wobble, and they're seriously worried about what it could unleash next. So yeah, they've got to win the holy city's favor before time runs out. Arthur leans forward and stares across the endless land, then declares, "We're here," as the holy city of Glastonbury finally comes into view. Kay slaps the truth into his mind: this is the Saintess's land, and he'd better impress her or he's done. She can't stop staring at the dream of a country where every race lives side by side. Arthur admits their home is way less diverse than this place, and Kay beams as she gladly pours tea. With a smug grin, he boldly claims that neither the Saintess nor the elves will ever outshine him. Kay proudly swears she's done her research, but Arthur brushes it off like it's some kind of joke. He's convinced that once he proves his power, the whole world will fall into his side as allies. Kay listens to his plan in complete silence, his face set in a serious, unreadable stare. Then her whole face lights up, and she excitedly offers to teach him everything she knows. She tells me the holy city isn't just a place, it's an autonomous powerhouse that steps in as the mediator between nations. But Arthur can't shake one burning question: why does this city hold so much power? Kay blurts out the truth: it's all because of the Saintess, a god-tier healer sent out to rescue other nations. She gazes over the city and finally clicks. She understands the brutal political gears turning beneath it all. Arthur lavishes praise on her, thrilled that she finally admitted she's a genuinely reliable personal maid. But just like that, a hand lunges in and yanks the little diary creature right out of his grip. A man flashes a confident grin and declares, "This is why you were summoned." Then he shouts Tristan's name like it's the start of a showdown. A woman beside him blurts out an apology, admitting she couldn't stop staring at just how cute Arthur and Kay looked together. Tristan, the knight everyone just named, admits Arthur is adorable, then immediately wonders what Kay thinks of him. With a sly wink, he declares that guarding them is absolutely worth every single second. A throat gets cleared on purpose, like a signal flare, snapping everyone back to the conversation. The woman tells her that if this meeting goes right today, Prince Arthur's fears will finally start to fade. She says this is their shot to forge a brand new friendship with the Holy City. But Arthur can feel it under this peaceful mask. Everything's seconds away from falling apart. Politics are crumbling, and law and order is sliding off a cliff at breakneck speed. He can feel the flames of the coming revolution getting closer and closer. Tristan can only stare, completely baffled, as confusion creeps across his face. But Arthur straight up declares the Holy City Alliance is a gamble, one he's ready to bet everything on. He glances down for a split second, gripping his courage before the storm hits. Then he finally drops the truth: he's coming for the Saintess, and he's doing it in a ruthless, one-sided showdown. Kay is left utterly stunned when his sudden, bizarre declaration of war hits out of nowhere. Kay grins and jumps at the plan, shouting right back that he'll crush the Saintess, just like he promised. They barrel right up to a massive grand estate, the exact stage where this life-or-death meeting is about to happen. Kay leans in and asks if he's properly eaten, genuinely worried about his condition before the talks even start. But Arthur admits he couldn't resist. He already took a bite of the local specialty, a sizzling grilled bird skewer. A delicious gift Tristan, their nightly escort, passed to them like it was nothing, pure generosity. He leans in super close and asks Kay, "So you tried that local delicacy too, and it hit you with that insanely spicy punch, right?" She just cackles, joking that it'd be a real problem if every single bite tasted that poisonous. Their laid-back banter suddenly grabs the attention of every other escort around them. That familiar taste hits him like a lightning bolt, and Arthur snaps. He's already met this Saintess in his past life. He still remembers that cold, silent meeting across a long table, an ominous shadow hanging over him like a threat. He can't believe that meeting, an utter time sink, just some hollow formality that led nowhere. Because once the revolution finally erupted, the Holy City made a chilling choice, staying neutral while everyone else took sides. The memory of his torture crashes back. One cruel hand yanks his hair tight, and agony floods him. A guard mocked him to his face, sneering, "So what's it like, feeling real pain for the first time?" He clings to the memory, arms reaching out, voice cracking as he desperately yells for the Saintess to save him. His captors had cackled, daring him to yell for a healer, like that was his last shot at saving himself. But that woman scoffed in his face and told him, "Don't even bother calling for help." Because a prince who had to grovel to some foreign Saintess for help had already hit rock bottom. But when Kay shouts his name this time, he fights back hard. No way is history allowed to repeat itself. An attendant sweeps them into the room, and suddenly the stage is set for a meeting that's about to feel completely different. He snatches back his resolve and locks in this time. He's going to set everything right. A woman flicks her fan open and introduces herself with a fierce smile: Elaine, the Saintess of the Holy City. The instant it hits, Arthur, Kay, and even Tristan go completely speechless, like their minds just short-circuited. They're left frozen, staring in total disbelief, caught completely off guard. Kay thinks it's just shyness, but Arthur won't let him brush it off. This isn't that. The Saintess leans in and asks if the meal she cooked hits the taste he wants. One single spoonful of that weird, glimmering dish gets thrust into his hands, like it's about to change everything. Arthur hesitates, dread crashing over him as he raises the bite. He mumbles her name, Elaine, and then it hits him. Horrible clarity crashes in like a wave. And the Saintess tilts her gaze downward, wearing a knowing smile that turns downright sinister. A jolt hits him. He realizes in his past life, she never wore a mask at all. She tells them, "Hey, we're healers. We've got to put our differences aside and learn to get along." Kay panics, tried to steady the moment, urging him to remember this was a delicate diplomatic meeting. But Elaine just flat out tells him, You can't undo that fan you handed me. Then she lines in and says, this chance is way too rare, so I need to see your face. Kay blurts out a quick apology for what he did, but Arthur is so rattled that he can barely stand still. He presses for answers, what's the Saintess plotting, and how does he wrestle back control before it slips away. But Kay can only stare in terror as his composure finally crumbles to pieces. Elaine snaps out a mask of her own and tells him straight up, she already knows exactly who he is. And she's got zero plans to hear a single word he's trying to say. She boldly claims her healing power crushes the rest, then tells him to show up and show his face. Arthur snaps back that it's impossible, while Kay strains to yank him back. He swears his power hits just as hard, and she can't stop laughing at how confident he is. The prince snaps, he loses all composure and flails in pure panic. Kay blurts out frantic apologies for his outburst, scrambling to rescue the wrecked meeting from total disaster. Even Tristan and the other attendants rush in, begging the Saintess to spare him. Elaine catches them bowing in apology, and she smirks like she already won. The attendants huddle together in whispers, insisting that Saint Tess has been acting downright strange lately. A sudden memory crashes in, someone is begging Elaine, shouting that she's not just helping anyone, she's messing with royalty. They remember this, yeah, she does heal anyone who's hurting, but there's always a catch buried in the help she offers. One of the attendants lines in and demands, what could you possibly be complaining about? The other one shrugs and makes it brutally clear, the Saintess just flat out refuses to talk to them. But Kay suddenly blurts out, full confidence blazing, I get it, I understand everything. She insists she has to be useful, so she marches straight up to the Saintess and talks to her face to face. Arthur boasts about his superiority and demands an alliance, but Elaine shuts him down cold. Just then, wham, the doors get ripped open with a thunderous crash. A panicked man barges in, stammering apologies as he breaks up their meal. The whole room whips around, stunned by the chaos, because the meeting has officially blown apart. He snaps that he tore over here because this is an emergency, right now, no delay. A poisonous monster has crashed into a nearby village, and now every single resident is crawling with its deadly curse. The Saintess snaps her head away, like she's clocked everything in an instant, and finally gets what's really going on. She warns that the poison is so deadly it's dropping even the trained knights. With his final breath, the man thanks her, right as she's starting the job. Her hands flare with a blinding glow, screaming just how unstoppable her healing power really is. A surge of pure energy crashes over him, blasting the poison out of his body like it never stood a chance. He drops into a peaceful sleep, like the storm finally blew over and the danger vanishes for good. She tells him, you're safe now, then presses him to rest before anything else can go wrong. Arthur steps forward without hesitation and barks for a carriage, readying it for the afflicted village. But the Saintess whips around and glares at him, snapping, what a shame. Arthur just stares back in disbelief, totally blindsided by what she says. He drops his gaze and her cold, dismissive words slam back into his head, over and over. But the Saintess doesn't hesitate. She declares she'll save every single one of them herself. She snaps orders for her own carriage to roll out right now. Because right now isn't some fancy dinner party with a foreign prince, it's not time for that. With fire in her eyes, she vows she'll be the one who saves them. But Arthur and Kay are already one step ahead, charging straight for the village on their own. They can only gape in shock as they tear past her in a full sprint. Right on schedule, Arthur shows up at the scene way ahead of her, just like he planned. But when he finally arrives, he's hit with a nightmare. Every single villager is already gone, and the whole village lies in ruin. A cold shock hits him. Almost everyone around him has already been struck by the monster's poison. He takes it all in and meets the wary stares of the few villagers who are still standing. An old man lunges forward, shouting a fierce warning, telling him to stay back, because his life depends on it. But Arthur can already taste the poison in the air. There it is again, that familiar, deadly threat. He tells them to breathe easy, he's here, and he'll heal every single one of them. Just then the Saintess bursts onto the scene, and the old man yells her name in pure relief. She blurts out the exact location of the injured right away, ready to dive in and start working. Then the man breaks it down, explaining how that mysterious boy who showed up just moments earlier. It's none other than Prince Arthur, already racing to heal the afflicted. He glances over his shoulder with a cocky grin, then tells the lane she's already too late. And he boldly declares, I'm the one who's treating every single villager here today. He shoots his hand out and declares, loud and fearless, that he's the one who's going to save everyone. Elaine barrels forward, rage blazing as she seethes at his selfish interference. But the closer she gets, the more her stomach drops. This poison isn't anything she's ever seen before. A villager blurts out thanks to Arthur, and for a heartbeat, the agony eases off him like it's finally letting go. But that rush of relief lasts about one breath, because the poison slams back in with ruthless, total force. Just as Arthur finishes healing the wound, the villager crumples again, because the poison crawls right back into that same spot. Kay bursts in like a storm, clutching a bucket of water, and screams Arthur's name in full-blown panic. The Saintess thrusts her hand forward, face set in grim resolve as she seizes control of the chaos. Kay rushes in to back the Saintess, yet she's barely holding on, fighting a brutal toxin that won't let up. Because now they finally get it, the terrifying truth hits them hard. This poison isn't contained, it's in the air. Elaine snaps that even though his healing keeps him safe, just standing in the same room will doom everyone around him to infection. But Arthur just waves off her worry like it's nothing, swearing up and down that he's completely fine. She screams right back that his personal safety means nothing if he can't even protect the villagers. With a brilliant flash, she detonates her own healing power, unleashing a massive wave that surges forward. Her magic blasts through the whole hut, trying purely on desperation to cleanse the air itself. She whips around to Arthur and barks for him to heal everyone inside, while she personally keeps the poison trapped at the door. Arthur locks in with pure determination, accepts the challenge, and bursts into the glowing hut like his life depends on it. Onlookers just stood there, frozen, staring at the building like, what the heck is going on in there? Kay and the old man clasp their hands and pray for his safety, their faces carved with raw, shaking worry. But deep down, Arthur gets yanked backward mid-scream, crushed by the brutal wave of poison that comes for him. After a while, the villagers pack outside and shower Arthur with thanks for all the relentless work he's been doing. Inside, the old man jolts awake. An entire night has vanished, and morning is already here. Kay throws their hands up in pure victory, screaming that they actually pulled it off, thanks to the Saintess. But Arthur drops to the ground, straight up admitting that yeah, their powers match, but this was never meant to be a fight. He couldn't help but feel pure relief. He'd finally pulled the villagers out of their suffering. His selfless words totally caught the Saintess off guard. She glances down for a split second, and then it hits. Everything clicks in her eyes with calm, unstoppable understanding. With a tiny, knowing smile, she nods and admits he's totally right. Arthur shoots her a stunned look, totally shocked that she'd actually give him the point. He shouts her name right as she spins to go, and just like that, a brand new chapter ignites between the two healers. But Kay suddenly crumples to the ground and blurts out the same test again, begging herself, why is she pushing so damn hard? She bolts toward Arthur, breathless, screaming his name like the world is about to end. The old man can only stare in stunned confusion as the Saintess crumbles to the ground. Kay admits her body's totally given out, every last ounce of strength is gone. Turns out healing magic wrecks you hard, and she's never had to juggle this many patients all at once. Elaine lets out a tired sigh as Kay slides into the bed reserved for the sick. An old man is choking up in tears, stunned to the core that a foreign prince would actually ride in and save them. Elaine snaps that a tiny poor village like this doesn't owe them a single payment. Arthur jumps in and backs it up. He's healing them, no strings attached, and not a single reward crosses his mind. The old man erupts with joy, shouting both their names at the top of his lungs, while Elaine watches, face set in a brand new, unreadable expression. Tristan just sits there, his tired smile planted on his face as chaos erupts all around him. He shrieks in pure frustration, railing at the brutal grind of serving a master who won't follow a single rule. The knight's blood runs cold as he finally grasps it. The very person he swore to protect is already gone. Arthur and Tristan lock eyes and finally exhale. An understanding hits them both, and they're just relieved they're safe. Tristan leans in and softly tells him, I know exactly how it feels to worry about someone. But Arthur can only stare in utter confusion, still trapped there as Kay clutches him in his arms. A tense quiet drops into the room as everyone finally catches their breath after the ordeal. Right then, a beret-wearing man pops into view and whispers that she's already done enough of the test. He flashes her a warm, reassuring smile, trying to melt away every ounce of her exhaustion. But Elaine can only crane her neck upward, her face telling everyone she has to rest right now. The beret-wearing man leans in and tells Elaine to get ready, because the moment the horses are set, they're gone. Kay admits she's never, ever faced a poison this deadly before. Elaine snaps to it with a jolt. This isn't just poison, it's a toxin that spreads just by standing near someone. She flips the truth on its head and turns out the source is a cockatrice, one of the 5 great beasts. The villagers don't sugarcoat it, they back up her worst fears and tell her they've got no choice but to take up the fight. Arthur is absolutely horrified when he realizes one single monster can wreck a whole town's economy. Elaine leans in and asks if he knows what it is, then describes a beast with a chicken's head. When Arthur hears chicken, his excitement sparks instantly. Tristan even jumps in, offering to track it down for him. The villagers can barely process it. Prince Arthur is actually offering to help them. Then he blurts out, "So, has anyone here fought monsters before?" And you can hear the nerves creeping in. Kay is left totally flustered by that sudden, gut-punch concern. Arthur rushes in to calm her down, insisting it's just a chicken. But he pauses for a heartbeat, eyes narrowing like he's fighting a hard decision. He understands at the moment he sees it, she's not just caring, she's scared to death for his safety. Tristan cuts in out of nowhere, grinning with confidence as he swears he'll be there, ready to protect them. The knight is so shocked by their deep bond that he can't even find the words to speak. But the Saintess has officially snapped. She's done with their non-stop bickering. She thrusts her hand forward and a blinding light ignites, swelling into something powerful. She shoots them a cold stare and tells them she doesn't need a single bit of their help. Her eyes blaze with raw determination, daring the beast to come, because she'll face it alone. She stands up, declares she'll fix her country's mess all on her own. Then she bolts straight into the woods while her attendant shouts her name after her. The man in the beret can only stand there as she walks away, his face etched with tired worry. Tristan rants that the tale between Tess and Arthur always turns into pure frustration. Arthur can only stare at the ground, whispering a small apology like it'll somehow fix all this mess. But the man in the beret lines in and says the Elaine of the past was nothing like this. His mind snaps back 4 years to a totally different life. He can still see young Elaine, eyes shining, betting her whole future on becoming a true, pure saintess. She felt her whole life ignite from the legend of a holy king, a healer who would save anyone, no matter who they were. And she chased the same dream of becoming a hero just like him, a legend so perfect it looked pulled straight from a fairy tale. But then he lays it out, ideal dreams and brutal reality usually miss each other by miles. The name St. Tess wasn't some real title, it was just a badge they slapped on to jack up the church's power and demand obedience. At the start, she tried to live the dream straight out of a fairy tale. Elaine wiped away the tears as her mother sobbed with pure gratitude, and all she said was that she was just doing what needed to be done. She was over the moon, her child had been saved by the Saintess's power, and pure joy hit her like a wave. But some people twisted her kindness into a weapon, using it to polish the church's image and boost its reputation. The brutal political reality hit young Elaine like a slap to the soul, and she went completely stunned. The kid she saved could only manage a few pure, heartfelt words of encouragement. But Elaine could feel it in her bones, this wasn't right, because she didn't want an agenda at all, she just wanted to help people. She couldn't even stand side by side with the other priests, they treated her like nothing but a disposable tool. When the word hit that a deadly epidemic was spreading in a nearby town, Elaine instantly geared up to sprint in and help. But her companions treated it like gold, huddling close and whispering that if even more people got sick first, things would go smoother for everyone. They treated it like a golden chance to flex their power, cracking Elaine just long enough to demand, "Wait, what are you even talking about?" The brutal cynicism of her own people hit her like a truck, and she froze in total shock. Her bright, hopeful spirit got crushed, and her face instantly crumpled into despair. Her companions could only stare as she reacted, like they didn't care one bit. As she slipped into the darkness, the world shut the door behind her, and she was totally alone. The beret-wearing man leans in and tells Elaine that, from that day forward, she stopped expecting anything from anyone. She finally understood the legendary healer, the noble, selfless kind everyone swore was real. Was a fairy tale she could never step into, not in this world. So she chose to become a jester, a clown who'd swear off all hope for the world forever. The beret-wearing man ends his tale, and it finally clicks. He understands why her facade stays ice cold. Arthur shoots off a quick apology for how he acted earlier, then bolts after her. Kay can only stare, worry clawing at them as they shout the Saintess's name. And Arthur finally gets it, living in a world where nobody's trustworthy feels downright terrifying. Kay tries to grab his attention, but he shrugs her off like she's nothing, completely swallowed up in his own storm of thoughts. With a grin, he declares they're off to hunt a cockatrice, and the villagers are left staring in pure, stunned confusion. Arthur whips around out of nowhere, blurts out Kay's name, and snaps her completely off guard. He leans in close and urges her to keep her eyes on him, promise himself he'll come back safe. With a shaky, tear-bright smile, she swears she will. Arthur and Tristan push into the woods, and the prince can't stop asking, where do they even start this search? The knight just smirks and nods as if the answer is obvious. Yeah, that's a damn good question. He says that when a cockatrice slithers around, it always leaves behind a trail of its prey's remains. Arthur thinks a monster mascot is hilarious, completely blind to the danger lurking behind it. But just when his smile is at its peak, he suddenly trips, then goes flying through the air. He flips through the air, yelling at Tristan to get his act together and protect him, right now. As he hits the ground, he spots a ripped scrap of cloth, and it practically dares him not to just toss it aside. But when he leans in for a closer look, his face detonates with pure shock. He spots the fabric and horror creeps in fast, because he instantly knows exactly who it belongs to. His thoughts snap to that stern elf woman's face, only now her fate hangs in the balance. He launches into a full sprint, brushing off every shout from behind him. A bead of sweat races down his face as he drives forward, refusing to slow down, yelling the saintess's name at the top of his lungs as he charges straight for her. Then he spots her crumpled on the ground, deadly victims of a cockatrice strike. He can't wrap his head around how she'd risk everything like that, alone. Tristan and the beret-wearing man sprint to check. She's still only unconscious. Tristan gets blindsided by the sudden move. The knight can only gawk, stunned as the prince's sudden outburst erupts out of nowhere. The injured elf woman cracks her eyes open inch by inch, murmuring the saintess's name like it's the only thing holding her together. And the beret-wearing man leans in and tells you the truth. Elaine stormed off to battle the beast all alone. The man explains that she commanded them to turn back to the village, then left him standing there, alone, to face the beast. A memory hits hard. She coldly shuts them down, insisting she doesn't need a single bit of their help. Her companions begged her with shaking voices, shouting her name like they were out of time. But Arthur roars that he'll be the one to take down the cockatrice. No one else gets the burden, he's claiming it all. The man in the beret suddenly remembered the elf woman's words. This was the exact reason they'd come in the first place. She demanded to join the same test, no matter what danger came crawling in. Arthur whips around to Elaine and asks, be honest, have you ever even seen a cockatrice before? He blurts that he's only ever seen monsters stuffed like trophies. Then she slips away, shushing him as he has to bite his tongue. She snaps a glare over her shoulder, ordering him to shut up and stay silent. But Arthur only smiles and points out that if they get too loud, that monster could show up out of nowhere. Tristan shot Arthur a question. Was he suddenly freaking out about those same tests too? He points out just how insanely rare it is for a prince to actually care this deeply about someone else. Arthur admits it, no matter what, he can't bring himself to leave Elaine out there on her own. Tristan's thoughts snap straight to romance, and Elaine's face twists with instant disgust. But Arthur keeps scratching his head, insisting he doesn't really want to help her at all. Then boom, a sudden realization snaps into place like the last piece of a puzzle. With a cheerful grin, he tells her he even read the picture book about the Holy King too. His words hit a raw nerve, and Elaine snaps her gaze back with a tense, uneasy stare. She lunges at him out of nowhere, snatching him up fast, her eyes blazing with a wild emotion she can't even say out loud. Arthur can only stare back, shocked, wondering what he said that made her jump like that. She scoffs through her confidence, insisting it won't hurt her, no matter what. The man in the beret finally snaps. She's the one who's been talking about him this whole time. Arthur admits it flat out. He doesn't buy everything that story is selling. He tells her she's basically quit the dream of becoming the Holy King and stopped believing she can trust anyone else. But he reminds her she's still fighting. She hasn't given up on saving them. And deep down, she can't shake the dream of becoming just like that legendary hero. Elaine looks like she fully gets it. He's accusing her like she's just one of his little pastimes. Arthur and Tristan can do nothing but stare as she pulls off that bizarre reaction. She shrugs off everything he says, cutting him off with, "That's it, end of story." But Tristan cuts in, insisting it's not pity at all as he pushes Arthur forward. Tristan snaps at Elaine, telling her that as a proud saintess, she should just head straight back home. He makes it crystal clear, they can't just dump a foreign dignitary out in the woods and walk away. The elf woman can only stand there and watch, sweat beading on her brow as the tension crushes the air. But Elaine shoots back, furious and loud, that she doesn't need a single bit of their help. She screams at them to stop chasing her country's problems, drop it, and leave her alone. But her furious outburst gets snatched away the moment a cockatrice suddenly bursts onto the scene. Tristan jerks Arthur out of the line of fire just in time, right before the attack would have hit. The elf woman snaps her weapon into position, eyes widening as she realizes she's about to face the legendary beast. Arthur just gapes up in pure shock, realizing this thing is way bigger than he ever imagined. He panics and barrels into calling out to Tristan, demanding to know what they should do next. Arthur panics on the spot, screaming that there's no way they can fight in a space that cramped. Tristan nods hard and barks for everyone to back up, right now, toward the more open space. Elaine fires back immediately, yelling that they don't have a second to waste on any strategic retreat. Tristan flat out ignores her and jabs a finger toward a clearing, telling her that's where they'll finally catch the beast the right way. But their escape slams to a halt when Arthur erupts into a scream, because they've just run straight into a dead end. A cockatrice suddenly rockets past them, totally blowing off the whole group. Arthur is totally thrown off when the elf woman perks up at the sound of rushing water. Tristan finally clocks the horrifying truth: this cockatrice is a poisonous bird, and it's heading straight for the river. He tells them that right at the water's edge, it can poison the entire area and turn it into a deadly toxic swamp. In that poisoned water, the beast mutates into a real omen of plagues, spreading pestilence with every breath. The elf woman draws back her bow, snaps her aim on target, and releases an arrow that streaks clean and true. But it evaporates in midair, swallowed by the beast's toxic aura. The beret-wearing man snarls that the poison is just too corrosive for a single attack to even connect. The elf woman snaps that the cockatrice is a sneaky coward and warns you this fight is going to drag on and test every second. She whips around to Arthur and tells him, "Don't worry, I've got this. Now go back to your country." Then a boot suddenly stomps straight into the poisoned water with a nasty splash. As Arthur barrels ahead, he shuts out every single warning people throw at him. The cockatrice can only stare, utterly baffled, at the strange human. Arthur grins and joyfully declares he's marching straight into the beast's safe zone. He sprints straight at the monster, flashing a confident grin that looks downright reckless. The poison hits him instantly, crawling into his body like it's got a mind of its own. A corrosive toxin so brutal it would drop any normal person in seconds. But before he can even catch his breath, his healing magic surges to life, purging the poison from his bloodstream as a blinding flash ripped through the air. He's stuck in this cycle at a mind-blowing speed, so fast the monster can't even make sense of it. The cockatrice can only stare in stunned disbelief. Its most deadly weapon is totally useless now. With the poison finally crushed, Arthur lunges his hand forward. And just like that, he snatches the now harmless beast up with a triumphant grin blazing across his face. The beret-wearing man can only stare in jaw-dropping awe, practically begging him to keep purifying the area. Elaine stares on, utterly speechless, as this wild turn of events blows her mind. The cockatrice is finally crushed into submission, and its power starts to drain away fast. But Elaine realizes this sick truth: as long as that poisoned water stays, the beast will keep sucking up its power. Tristan can't shake the fear that Arthur is going to run out of steam long before that monster even slows down. The elf woman strides ahead and offers her help any way she can. Arthur's words hit Elaine's mind like a drumbeat, flashing back the truth: she never really stopped fighting to save people. Tristan steals his fear and steals his resolve. He's ready to guard the prince no matter what it costs. Arthur whips his head around and demands, "Can we purify that spring's poison?" Elaine steals her resolve and unleashes her own healing magic. The beast screams one last time as Arthur clamps down on it with everything he's got. He shoots a radiant grin over his shoulder and thanks the saintess for saving him. Arthur can only choke out a confused, broken sound. The beast violently thrashes in its last breath, blasting him through the air like a cannon shot. Tristan's jaw drops as the poison liquid twists back into clean, pure water right before his eyes. Elaine is totally wiped out, but she finally stops the threat for good. Arthur rockets back to her side, beaming like the sun, and immediately thanks her for the help. She darts her gaze aside, cheeks burning, and blurts that she only did it because he was right there to help. But she suddenly drives her staff straight into his face, and he's left utterly blindsided. Her eyes are bulging wide, fierce with panic, like she's 1 second from breaking into a sprint. Arthur can only gawk back, totally thrown off by her sudden mood swing. A terrifying vision of the guillotine snaps across his mind, screaming the fate he's desperate to dodge. Arthur's jaw drops as her sudden rage hits like a punch to the gut. The man in the beret can't stop worrying. He fears this might be way too brutal for the saintess to survive. She snaps her gaze aside and challenges him like, "What could you possibly understand about me?" She snaps at him, screaming, "What the hell is wrong with you? What are you even trying to do?" She blasts him for tossing out flowery promises while leaving everything to his servants. She snaps, demanding how any sheltered prince could possibly understand the pain that's breaking her. Her attendant can only stand there helpless as he watches the test spiral into something wildly more agitated than before. Elaine stares down, muttering under her breath that you'd better not poke the bear any further. But Arthur just glances back calmly and tells her he gets it. He grabs her hand and with fresh conviction in his voice, he swears, no doubts, that he truly understands. His words slammed into her like a shockwave, and her eyes blew wide with pure disbelief. She yanks him by the collar in one sharp move, and her calm instantly shatters. He's rattled so hard it's frightening, and her rage finally snaps, right there, boiling over. A flicker of her past crashes in young, with a small, familiar boy's hand locked in hers. Arthur begs her to stop, utterly crushed by the sudden burst of rage. She snaps, demanding to know what he thinks he's doing, trying to heal her like he has any right. He drops his gaze and tells her straight up, this isn't pity at all, he's begging her to hear him out. The memories keep hammering back, and the boy's words echo in her head like they'll never fade. Arthur tilts his gaze up, grimacing, and tells her she's just like him. And he makes it crystal clear, if she keeps walking this road, she'll end up stranded, with nobody left to rescue her. She lets out a furious scream, demanding he stop pretending he understands what she's been through. She insists she's got it all under control, and she doesn't need anyone's help. And she makes it clear she doesn't need anyone's help. Suddenly, the cockatrice rockets forward and snatches them all in a split second. Elaine shrieks at him to get out of the way, like she's trying to stop disaster with sheer panic. But the elf woman lunges in front of him and shoves him to safety, then she takes the hit meant for him. The hit blasts her back and she stumbles, stunned. And she drops to the ground, crushed by the beast's looming shadow. Arthur dashes to her side, but she snaps back that she's got this, and she doesn't need anyone's help. Underneath it all, she's scared to death that life will finally crush her. Arthur tells everyone he can mend any physical wound, no matter how brutal it is. Having nobody to lean on feels like a special kind of suffering, one that aches deeper than anything else. And with tears spilling down her face, Elaine finally blurts out, I know pain way too well. Once the cockatrice is finally brought down, Tristan can only slump and exhale a tired, hard-earned sigh. The elf woman snaps at Arthur, telling him it's downright rude to barge into someone's private moment. And just like that, the fight finally ended. The village finally exhales, its dread is gone, and the cheers thunder through the forest like music. The man in the beret and the elf woman lock eyes, and a wave of relief hits them both at once. Kay frets over Tristan's tattered clothes, but Tristan just cackles it away like poison damage is no big deal. The elf woman flashes a smile and swears she's totally fine, and Arthur practically exhales in relief. By cracking the Saintess's problems and dropping the cockatrice, he finally managed to smooth everything out between them. And when he reads his diary, it all clicks, his entire world flips, and it hands him a total of 20 points. A fresh report drops the bomb. The Saintess herself is leading a whole crowd to stand in his way, right as his execution is set to happen. Elaine nods along, then insists they stay in touch starting right now. Later, Arthur and Kay stumble on Elaine's special recipe, cockatoo skewers, so they dig in and start sampling them right then. She asks if this is what he meant by an alliance, but instead of explaining, he just gripes, complaining how brutally spicy it is. He tells her to drop the formalities and speak like friends, because this is exactly what their brand new bond looks like. The elf woman looks completely slammed by the sudden shift in the whole atmosphere. Before long, they all finally click, and peace settles in like it was always meant to be. As their carriage rolls away, Elaine leans out and waves them off, flashing a real, heartfelt smile. Arthur leans out of the carriage, waving hard as he thanks Tristan, right as they're about to split. The knight just smirks, basically confessing that the mission succeeded because of him. A messenger rockets away, swearing he'll come back the moment anything new happens with the Saintess. Back inside Kay's world, he grins, like he just pulled off another win, snagging yet another ally. From his diary, turns out he dodged way more than the execution. He also slipped out of life imprisonment. With fresh confidence blazing in his chest, he declares this truth: death is inevitable, but his fate isn't set in stone. But right when they're finally getting a moment of peace, a bunch of curious onlookers suddenly crowd in and shatter the quiet. Before they can even breathe, a crowd barrels in and surrounds him, shouting praise like he's a living legend, the hero who just took down the cockatrice. Kay huddled in front of him to block the crowd, her mind racing. Are these people reporters or something worse? A man with glasses strides forward and proudly says he's Gene, then leans in with unstoppable eagerness, begging to hear their story. Jean lifts a newspaper and tells everyone this headline is already stealing the spotlight. It frames the face of a grim man, and his expression looks like despair weighs him down. The reporter rips the truth right out of the air. This guy's a criminal, and they've already stamped his date for a public execution. Arthur locks eyes with him right away, and he knows, instantly, it's the same desperate man who ambushed him on the road to Avalon. Jean tells everyone the execution is locked in for next week, an icy finale for the would-be assassin. And another onlooker chimes in, saying a massive crowd is sure to flood in to witness the spectacle. Arthur stares at his diary, and the moment his mind flashes back to the man who tried to end his life hits like a punch. But instead of exploding with rage, a brilliant, totally unexpected idea suddenly snaps into place. He doesn't call it an execution at all. He sees it as his golden ticket to rake in a mountain of good deed points. He whips around to the reporters and announces, loud and clear, that he's officially forgiven his attacker. The reporter just freezes, utterly stunned as the prince blurts out his shockingly sudden declaration. With a smug, confident grin, Arthur blasts out the news. This public execution is officially cancelled. His words slam into Jean and Kay like a thunderclap, leaving them totally speechless and stunned. The crowd erupts on the spot, demanding answers. How could he ever forgive a criminal? But Arthur breaks it down. He finally gets it. These people aren't pawns, they're individuals, and the selfish nobility are the real villains. He knew that man wasn't cruel. He was just drowning in desperation, swinging back hard to save his own life. And the royal family's cruelty turned that attack into a direct act of revenge. His diary flat out warns, if they don't get their punishment show, the people will have nowhere to dump their fury. But Arthur refuses to let that same vicious loop of despair keep swallowing him. His grand words totally sailed over the reporter's head. Then the reporter, buzzing with excitement, practically begs to have the story blasted onto the front page. But the reporter stumbles over every word, totally dumbfounded by the prince's bright, upbeat declaration. Arthur can't even wrap his head around it. Why is this so hard, when he's the one handing out forgiveness? Amid the chaos, a man in the crowd leans in and snaps that Arthur's the one suffering, but now the execution's become a state matter. He insists this is the only path to calm for the criminal, Louvain, because he finally deserves peace. Arthur softly mouths the name again and again, eyes sharp with calculation as he locks in his next move. He's totally lost in his head when Kay calls his name from right behind him. She tells him, if you're really set on this, I'll pull out every last stop to help you. With a raging spark in his eyes, Arthur swears, this time he will break free from his own execution for real. With that, he announces his brand new mission, stop the execution, and Kay jumps in, promising to help him hammer out a plan. A tense silence falls while they both stare down the brutal task waiting for them. Arthur cracks and tells Kay he's totally lost, then asks if she's come up with any plan at all. But his loyal maid suddenly drops to the floor, hit hard by a raging fever. That grueling journey and all that stress finally caught up to her. Arthur coaxed her to lie down and rest, telling her with a steady voice that the fever had finally broken. Marion, the head maid, leans in and says Kay's just wiped out from all that travel. They're probably running on pure exhaustion. With his main advisor knocked out of commission, Arthur realizes they'll have to track down someone else for help. He fires through his list of allies, but every single name feels wrong for something this delicate. Then it hits him pure genius, and he already knows who he has to call. Marion can't hide her excitement. He found a solution that fast, and it's like she's buzzing with relief. So he summons his chosen ally to a massive estate, ready to beg, no, to demand their help. And the ally he chose, it's none other than the first prince, Rod Pendragon. A stern maid stands right beside him, her face a locked door that gives away nothing. A jolt of memory hits Arthur, younger and grinning, blurts his brother's name like it's the best news in the world. But Rod lunged in and seized him by the shoulders, shoving him hard with a shockingly brutal jolt. He'd thrown down the accusation that Arthur only wanted the throne, just because he had healing powers. Arthur tried to brush it off, and his brother instantly spiraled into pure chaos. The maid shot Rod a look and said Arthur already had more people on his side, so don't sweat it, he's the eldest son. But Arthur just grinned and said his big brother was the kind of guy you could be proud of. Right now Arthur takes a sip of his tea, grinning. Rod showed up fast the moment he called. Rod sips his tea with a smug grin while his maid insists he's the kind older brother, like, for real, the nicest one. But his words land like punches. He's convinced Arthur is falling into depression because his supporters have thinned out. He even laughs at the fact that Arthur got tossed into prison, and he's calling him a total fool. His maid glares in disgust, convinced that a man who can't even command his own people has no business sitting on the throne. Arthur looks impressed as he nods, admitting he's not king material, and that's exactly why they executed him. He grins and tells Rod he's nailed his true nature perfectly, right in front of his brother, who can't stop glaring in disgust. But then his face hardens. He warns Rod that if this keeps going, Arthur's the one who will end up facing execution, and it crushes Arthur's heart. Then he whips around to Rod's maid and asks what he can do to help his brother, right away, and she grins and hands him some sweets. Arthur shoots back a slightly flustered, "Thank you," and Rod watches the weird exchange unfold with sharp focus. Maid number 15 just stands there, stone-faced, watching everything like she won't ever crack. Arthur grins and tells Rod to finally call his servants by name, but his brother just can't wrap his head around it. The maid can't stop thinking about the one truth that everyone's just human, and how Goyoku's betrayal still haunts her from her past life. Betrayal from someone you trusted, a subordinate, can snap into death before you even realize it. Arthur flashes a satisfied smile, like he just proved his point beyond doubt. That bizarre exchange throws Rod and his maid into full-on panic, leaving them both utterly flustered. Rod bursts out shouting, demanding to know if Arthur's personal maid bolted just because she caught a fever. He bursts out laughing, claiming this is the proof that Arthur is straight up, neglecting his own staff. He snaps at his brother and warns him not to get lazy just because he's got healing magic. The cat-eared maid stares at the floor and thinks, one day they'll compare Arthur to the Saintess, and that'll break him. Hearing the Saintess Elaine's name hits a nerve in Rod like lightning. The maid snaps that Arthur's made friends with the Saintess, then shoots a look at Rod like, "So, are you crying over that?" Arthur bursts in out of nowhere, shouting his brother's name while Rod's rage boils. He leans in so close it's all desperation, urgently begging, "Tell me, how do I stop this execution before it happens?" Arthur tells Rod he tracked him down for one reason only, his insane, encyclopedic knowledge. He watches with bright hope in his eyes, hanging on every word, waiting for his brother to step in and guide him. But Rod explodes with rage, demanding answers. Why would anyone want to save the one man who tried to kill him? Arthur and the maid can only stare, stunned as he snaps, "What's gotten into my brother?" He blurts out that because Rod's a political expert, there's got to be a way he already knows how to fix this. Rod just scoffs at the whole idea that brothers are meant to back each other up. He shuts the whole idea down like it's pure nonsense. Arthur stays cool and tells him straight up, "Relax, we're rivals for that throne, plain and simple." But Rod insists that a real brother doesn't have to waste his ears on the voices of commoners. Arthur's smile sharpens into something calculating. If Rod dares to rebel, he'll have him hauled straight to prison. With a sudden surge of gratitude, he snatches his brother's hand, leaving Rod utterly flustered. And just like that, Arthur bolts out in a panic, leaving his brother standing there alone. Rod can only yell after him, steamrolling with rage at the weird stunt his younger brother just pulled. The twists hit so fast that both of them are left totally dumbfounded. Because Arthur knows a betrayal from someone under him is basically a one-way ticket straight to the grave. Right then the maid snapped out Rod's name, and the seriousness on her face hit like a warning. She finally spills it. Every love letter he sent to St. Tessa Lane came back to him, untouched, still sealed and unopened. He bursts into Louvain's village, just in time to catch the locals whispering that the condemned man brought all their troubles on them. It hits him hard, his own words echo in his head. Brothers aren't supposed to compete, they're supposed to help each other. He strides up to the kids, and right away you can tell they're locked in an argument about the royal family. He can't stop thinking about Louvain, condemned by the state, even as a few quiet voices fought back in the shadows. And he knows he has to hunt down the people ready to stand up and fight this injustice. He strides through the desolate village, and the locals can't stop staring, wondering if any noble could actually help them for real. Arthur steps right in front of them and declares, with zero hesitation, that he's already forgiven the man who attacked him. He's convinced that if enough voices rise up, they can flip the decision and stop the execution. It's all part of his master plan. He's gathering allies and closing in on the condemned man. His words hit the crowd like sparks, and suddenly the first seeds of dissent start to spread. Right when they're about to execute him, he snaps into action with a wild plan, using healing magic to save the man. With a cocky grin, he charges into the crowd and tries to whip the villagers to his side. He imagines himself stretching his hand toward Louvain, a lone figure standing defiant against the whole state. But the sheer weight of it all smashes him down, and dread claws at his mind, failure flash after flash, their grief hanging over him like a curse. Right then, a familiar, towering figure strides onto the estate, and the whole place seems to tense up. It's none other than his fiancée, Morgan Le Fay. She's heard the rumor again. Arthur has slammed his door shut and locked himself in his room. Word already hit the streets. The prince is straight up defying the public execution. Morgan can't believe the reclusive prince is stepping into the spotlight like this. Even with her usual icy attitude, there's something different about her. She's hunting him for a reason. She can feel it in her bones. Arthur's hurting, and seeing him fight through it breaks her heart. She remembers Kay trying to soothe him, urging him to stop spiraling so hard. The memory hits her like a switch. Her eyes flare with sudden worry. Because she finally understands just how much agony is ripping through him. With fresh resolve burning in her chest, she whips around to face the head maid. Marion tells him she's finally breathing easy, because the day they were supposed to execute him, people flooded the streets with protests. She's just relieved that Arthur never had to march into that place and witness it firsthand. But from his room, Arthur rages that it's all his fault. Morgan shouts his name at the top of his lungs, pounding to break through the locked door. She leans in and tells him, straight to his face, that what went down wasn't just some childish prank. She leans in and tells him, straight to his face, that he's not the one to blame. But Arthur spins away and Kay is left staring, powerless, desperate, and aching with concern. Guilt drags him straight into the deepest shadows inside him. With tears streaming down his face, he swears he's the one who stepped in and messed up the execution. He clings to the kids' desperate hope, convinced their protest can still rip him from whatever fate has him trapped. And he remembers Morgan pulling up at the exact moment everything was seconds away from going full-blown violent. She stepped forward and offered her help, ready to jump straight into their cause. But the protests spiraled out of control. Kids were chanting Arthur's forgiveness like a battle cry. In the middle of the chaos, a young girl got knocked down hard, while her brother screamed, terrified for her to be okay. The whole crowd's focus got yanked away. The second chaos exploded into a brutal, sudden twist. A sharp crack rips through the square like wood is snapping in midair. A man with a bottle bellows, "Now's our shot, move." The kids can only stare, eyes huge with terror, as the plan crashes into place. Morgan clenched her jaw, watching everything spiral into chaos. He flashes back to his crazy plan, using all that chaos as the perfect distraction. But it was already too late. He couldn't stop the execution once they'd started. She convinced herself it was all going perfectly. She never once saw failure coming. The guards are totally blindsided when the uprising erupts out of nowhere. The kids shriek for their brother while the guards scramble, fighting to get control back. With that whole chaos swallowing everything, Arthur finally admits it. He didn't stand his ground, he just bolted. Morgan yells his name from the other side of the door. She brings his promise rushing back, one he swore he'd keep for the people. He remembers Kay trying to soothe him, whispering that she'd keep his pain locked away and never let a soul in. Morgan's face finally eases, and a wave of real understanding flickers across his expression. Her words finally land, and Arthur shoots the door open. He can only blurt her name in pure, stunned disbelief. He couldn't believe she'd travel all that way just to find him. She whips around to face him, and you can tell she's about to finally spit out the truth burning in her chest. And she tells him, "If there's something you want to do, count on me, I've got you." Her sudden offer hits so hard that even Kay can't help but feel completely moved. Kay tells her, "I saved you," and now she can finally see just how hard he's been fighting to prove he cares. Arthur's smile flares up like a spark as the truth clicks. Morgan's been thinking the same thing the whole time. His sudden realization makes his fiancée completely lose her cool. He teases her and finally blurts out the truth. He'd been convinced she hated him this whole time. Morgan snaps her gaze away and mutters that she doesn't exactly hate him anymore. Arthur points at her, straight up, admitting his voice shakes. He's still got a little fear clinging to him. A voice slices through the air, calling him out because the truth is he's a fool. He yells for Kay to save him on the spot, even while she's shouting his name back. Then a quiet, almost defeated laugh slips into the air. Arthur shoots her a grin and flips back like, "Wait, did you honestly think I was crying?" He says he's just snatching a code and strides off, leaving Morgan stuck there staring. Kay can finally breathe easy. Prince Arthur's back on his feet, and the relief hits like a wave. But Morgan's face stays locked in a deep, unreadable thought, like they're hiding the next move in plain sight. She whips around to Kay and admits the maid's life has been a living nightmare because of him. The comment hits Kay like a surprise punch. She's completely caught off guard. She can only blurt out Morgan's name, all flustered by the sudden spotlight. Morgan remembers how, the moment she scolded Arthur as a kid, he'd bolt straight to the garden to hide his tears. She admits she can't fix a thing for him, but she can't ignore how heartbreakingly tragic his situation is. As she disappears into the dark, Kay blurts out her name, desperate to stop her. Arthur's half-baked plan dangled Leuven's siblings with false hope, right before everything shattered and came crashing down. He crumples in the garden, whispering apologies into the empty air. The crushing weight of his failure sinks in, and he can only choke out, "I'm sorry," as tears spill. He's convinced that even his magical diary can't patch up the person he's become. And the book slams the truth in his face, confirming every fear, then denies him the next task. He can't stop thinking about how Kay and Morgan changed because of him. Even after all this, he's still that selfish kid. He crumbled because all he cared about was saving his own skin. The diary's creature suddenly lunges forward, snapping at Kate to stay back. It tells him, if you're ready to quit this timeline, grab the diary and hit the self-destruct. The creature thrusts the book toward him, dangling a final, terrifying offer. As darkness crashes in, Arthur thrusts his hand out, accepting every bit of what's coming. That night, Kay feels the chill bite the air as she swings the curtains shut and gets ready to draw them. She stays by Arthur's side while he rests, and when he wakes a little, he slips her a soft, sincere thank you. He goes still for a beat, eyes shut tight, holding his breath in silence. Then he leaned in and asked Kay if he could see her face one last time. She peeks out from under the covers, and with a soft, warm smile, she calls his name. And she swears right then and there that she'll never leave his side. Arthur can't help but think she's going way too overboard. Later, he drifts through the grounds by himself, staring down a cruel misconception that he's somehow immortal. The diary's creature sends a sick reminder down his spine, every brutal end he could face, starvation, being crushed, or getting his head cut clean off. With that brutal thought hanging over him, a brand new chapter slams onto the page. He's right at the edge of a pitch-black pond, and the panic of drowning crashes over him like a tidal wave. Clutching the diary like it might burn him, he wears quiet despair on his face. He lets out a grim, shaking breath of relief, because the water's not frozen over. He's done. He's choosing to quit this world, just so he can finally stop wrestling his fate. With one final decisive step, he plunges straight into the icy water. An icy chill clamps onto him the second he slips into the dark. His diary slips out of his grasp, drifting off as a nasty crack splinters across the calm surface. He's certain the pond's middle is deep enough to finish everything in one plunge. And against his will, his healing magic kicks on anyway, casting a gentle glow into the dark. And then it hits him. No matter how powerful he is, the cold still bites and the pain still feels real. He can almost hear Kay's voice in his head, demanding to know if he really understands just how freezing it is. He dives deeper into the blackness, and steel grips his resolve tighter with every step. But one single thought slices through the despair and screams, "No, never," lighting up his mind. Because he knows that if Kay were here, everything changes. She would burst in without a second thought, furious tears spilling as she clutched him tight to her chest. He can't stop thinking about Morgan, how Morgan wouldn't sneer at him, but would stare with real, gut-wrenching worry. He can't stop thinking about Marion and the other maids, because they're going to tear into him for this. He even finds himself thinking about Elaine, Tristan, and the kids from that orphanage. The faces of everyone he's met, every person he's helped, slam into his mind like a roaring wave. And then he breaks down. Finally, he's memorized every single name, only to toss it all away. He slips under the cold, dark water and lets it swallow him whole. The diary's creature thrusts a lifeline at him, grab the book, and reset everything. He flashes a shaky, sad smile, wondering if he can survive it all over again. Because if he can't change, he'll just keep smashing into the same failures again and again. He shuts his eyes tight, completely broken, with no clue what to do next. He can't stop wondering what he should have done differently. A thick, heavy silence smothers the pond beneath a sky packed with stars. Then bam, a tiny splash shatters the night's eerie silence. A fist shoots up out of the water like it's been ripped through the surface. And Arthur ends up sprawled on the ground, drenched to the bone, totally stunned and lost. He jerks for air, coughing up cold pond water like it's choking him. Staring around in a daze, he couldn't make sense of what had just exploded in front of him. His sight crumples into black, and the whole world tears apart into nothingness. Then a memory slams back, one brutal snowy night, with his younger brother Mordred peering down at him. A voice blurts out his name, and Arthur's eyes snap wide with pure shock. The young Mordred just grins at him from his memories, teasing that they're up way past their bedtime. He remembers the diary's last offer, quit this world and hit the reset button, starting over from scratch. He remembers leaping into the pond, convinced the fall was the end of everything. So all he can do is choke out confused questions, begging to know why he's still here. As he sprawls on the cold ground, horror creeps in. Time hasn't been reversed at all. Arthur can't stop replaying it in his head. His plan flopped, and then a voice drops in, calling him out for how late he's still awake. His younger brother scoots in close and whispers, "What are you muttering about?" And Arthur can only choke out the one name, Mordred, the boy who will one day bring him down. Mordred just bursts into laughter, admitting he never expected to find him standing out here. He tells them, "I just got back from meeting up with my supporters," only to stumble on the truth, his older brother sprawled out asleep on the cold, unforgiving ground. Arthur's mind can't wrap around it. Of all moments, he just had to get caught running into him now. To finally face the one person who murdered him in the last timeline. The kid looks harmless, but his future is literally in his grip. Mordred shoots him a warning, "Stay out in the snow and you'll catch a cold." Mordred just throws back a laugh, taunting his brother like he's got some kind of sickness. That comment slams a fresh wave of terror straight into Arthur's chest. His little brother shrugs it off as mere horseplay and labels him helpless. Then he thrusts out his hand, telling Arthur he can't keep freezing out there. That tiny gesture throws Arthur into a full-on panic, and he can't even find a single word to say. Mordred shrugs off that weird reaction like it's nothing, and decides it doesn't matter. But then his gaze locks onto the magical diary, and he blurts out, "What is this?" Arthur yells at him to back off, swearing there's nothing written inside that thing. Mordred lets out a sharp scoff at the idea of a blank diary, while Arthur insists it's nothing like it looks. But his brother flashes a sly grin like he's been in on every twist of the plan all along. Mordred grins and points out right in Arthur's face that Leuven is still gone, then presses him. "So, did you finally learn your lesson?" Arthur can only stare at his brother and demand one thing: did he know about that plan the whole time? Mordred leans in and flat out confirms he knows the exact reason the rescue attempt crashed and burned. Then he leans in with a chilling grin and asks, softly but surely, if his big brother wants to hear the reason. Arthur can't wrap his head around it. Why would his own brother be so cruel? Mordred leans in with a smug grin, yanking his attention just to remind him that brothers are meant to have each other's backs. That taunt detonates rage in Arthur, and he rockets forward, screaming his brother's name like it's tearing out of his chest. Mordred shoves him aside like he weighs nothing, and he tumbles down the snowy hill in a wild skid. Arthur slams into the snow, the brutal impact stealing the breath straight out of him. He can only stare up and crumble, wrecked to the bone by his brother's brutal cruelty. With a cruel smirk, Mordred flashes the real, simple reason everything went wrong. A memory crashes in, Arthur healing him when he was a kid, while his brother snaps that it all went wrong because he's just too kind to let it work. He can still picture young Arthur all smiles, just thanking him for the healing. And still, Mordred laughed in his face, calling him a fool for doing the selfless thing. That memory detonates in Arthur. Rage floods his veins as he screams that it's his brother who's the real fool. Mordred coolly tells Arthur, "No matter how hard you try, you can't change a single thing." Then he leans in, and a chilling, calculating fire burns in his eyes. He taunts Arthur for finally getting it too late. Saving everyone is impossible, and every commoner is their own person. He hands the diary back, then tells his brother, "Don't give up yet, you still have time." But Arthur snatches the book out of the way and screams at him to shut up. He hurls a furious shout at his brother, "Shut up," and totally refuses to hear another second of his taunts. Mordred keeps his cool and calmly snaps that it's Arthur who's wrong. He's the one who thinks he was saved. He can still name every person who ever taught him pain and how to push himself harder than ever. And that's why he's fully locked in on saving every last one of them, because if he sacrifices enough, he just might get saved in return. Raw emotion crashes over him and he breaks, tears spill as a desperate cry tears out of his mouth. But Mordred just bursts into laughter, mocking his brother for acting so ridiculously childish. He vows he'll stop Arthur cold, then drops one last chilling threat like a knife in the dark. And just like that, Arthur storms off, swearing he'll study, sharpen his skills, and rewrite this world one last time. A brand new day breaks over the castle, lighting up the very place where his renewed fight begins. And the very first person he calls, it's his fiancée, Morgan. Morgan listens, but you can see the exhaustion creeping into her expression. He leans in and tells her straight up he needs to ask a favor. He's determined to master practical politics, so he can build a fair world where nobles and commoners both win. And he's adamant she's the only person he could ever ask for something like that. His fresh determination starts spreading outward, nudging the whole world and rewriting it one tiny change at a time. Out in the fields, a bunch of kids busted their butts under the blazing hot sun. A rider barrels in on horseback and right then and there calls out that they're Luvin's siblings, the ones dragged down after his execution. He tells them that once their guardian turned into a criminal, their entire future turned into a big question mark. Then boom, he drops the most unexpected bombshell. Starting next month, the state is going to send them a subsidy. Back in his study, his tutor corners Arthur and demands to know if this new ordinance was his doing, and why Arthur hid his role in it from everyone. He tells them, "I don't want your gratitude. I'm not some version of me you can even begin to understand." The tutor can only stare in stunned awe as Arthur flashes that knowing smile. With that settled, he leans in and calmly declares, "All right, lesson time, let's begin." He knows this tiny gesture won't wipe the slate clean, but it's all he's got right now, until a voice suddenly shouts his name. A bunch of kids barged in, practically vibrating with excitement, shouting that the break time was finally here. Betty and the whole orphanage crew were over the moon, grateful as ever that Morgan pulled strings and got them into his lessons. Another boy, Yisu, grumbles that studying is way too brutal, unlike Beatty, who can't stop devouring books. Arthur just takes a sip of his tea, glaring because Yisu isn't even trying. Then the tutor slams out a question to the whole class, asking what they think is the kingdom's worst, biggest problem. Arthur leans forward, voice low, and quietly gives his answer. Yisu grapples with the text, staring at the words like they refuse to click, and nothing makes sense. But Beatty drops a shockingly deep truth. The common people aren't all the same, they're all different, real individuals. Arthur leans in and lays it out. This noble's wheat monopoly is only a fuse, because an uprising is coming no matter what. Yisu snaps an accusation of treason at him on the spot, appalled by every word he spits out against the nobility. But Arthur stays cool as he admits the truth. He's just studying the wrecks from his past life, and he learned that lesson the brutal way. The lesson keeps going, and Yisu is still fighting just to stay ahead of the reading. Betty proudly marches up to Arthur and shows him, grinning, that his book is already finished. Then he jabs a finger at the next one, shouting that his mission is to make the founding festival a hit, until Arthur's stomach drops when he realizes, with a jolt, that it's his magical diary staring back at him. Beatty reaches for the diary, and it slips right out of his grasp as the truth hits. This isn't some normal textbook. Arthur snatches it back fast, and the second he spots a brand new entry staring back at him, he blurts out an apology. He can't believe it, this is impossible, because only he should be able to see the diary's words. He leans in and the glow is wrong, those letters aren't shimmering like they always do. A sickening realization slams into him. Someone else has been scribbling in his magical diary.